TitleMatchNetwork.com.
Welcome to another edition of the RF Video Shoot interview series. Today we're joined by a true wrestling legend in the sport of professional wrestling, Robert Fuller. Thanks for being here with us today.
I'm happy to be here with you. Yeah.
My very first question to you is, you came from a long line of wrestling in your family. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I could talk about that a little bit. You know, my father was Buddy Fuller, and his dad, Roy Welch. And, Roy was one of four brothers, Roy, Herb, Lester, and Jack. And they were very popular in the Tennessee area. I mean, very popular. As a matter of fact, Roy wound up running the whole 5 states around Tennessee, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi, part of Mississippi, and all of Alabama. So they were at one time probably one of the largest wrestling organizations of all time and well known in that area. Didn't get out of that area a great deal. You know, it's just those 5 states because of promoting and all of them working together, the brothers, that they didn't get up north a lot. So, you know, if you go up north, you probably wouldn't see them very much. My father grew up, you know, naturally raised by my grandfather, Roy, and Roy was a mean man. He was a brutal son of a gun, and he got into wrestling by being a brutal son of a gun. That you know, back in the days of 40s when he got into the wrestling business, you had to have pretty good credentials. It wasn't a situation where you could come in, take a little bit of training, go in the ring, and everything would work. That it was more of a situation where you had to take care of yourself, and if you weren't a tough son of a gun, you weren't going to make it far in the wrestling business. And so my dad was brought up that way, and he brought my brother Ron and me up in the same way. That and my dad growing up and my grandfather made it very clear to him that if you're not a tough son of a gun in this business, you're not going to get far without having your rear end handed to you. And that there was too many guys in this business that demanded respect and wouldn't give you any. And so my grandfather taught my father that it's important that you're a tough guy. And so Dad learned to hook, and he learned to take care of himself extremely well in the ring. Unfortunately, a lot better than I did, because you know, in bringing me up, he kind of brought my brother and I up the same way. And as a young boy, I could be going out on a date or something, or dressed up, ready to leave the house or something, and Dad had no regards for any of that. If he had a guy that came over and said, "Oh, I want to be a wrestler. I'd like to get in the wrestling business and wrestle," and we want to train with Dad, and Dad never did any of that stuff at all. In high school, he would just get me and my brother, no matter what we're doing, walk out of the house, and he'd say, "Hey, kid, take your shirt off, take your coat off, come over here and wrestle." And it wasn't a wrestle this guy, and it wasn't a situation where I could say, "Oh, Dad, I'm just fixing to go out with a date and I'm all cleaned up, I just took a shower." He says, "Get over here, get your shirt off and wrestle," and that's what she did. And so, and growing up, my brother and I learned to hook, learned to wrestle a lot like Dad did. Never was as good as he was, and he probably never was as good as his grandpa was, but his dad was, my grandfather. Because of the necessity to be tough, to be that kind of guy. And so we grew up pretty rough with that in mind. Grew up on a farm, ranch, and there was a lot of, Dad had a rodeo company, and there was bulls and there was bucking horses. It was always tough life, always a tough life. Dad liked it that way. If there was a horse in the barn, you were scared of him, then you were going to ride him. And it didn't make any difference whether you were bucked off or hurt or whatever, because Dad thought getting hurt, getting bucked off and everything was just a good lesson. And we were brought up in that way. And in doing so, I never was one of those fellas that walked out of the house, going to a date, and Dad said, "Get over here," and I'd be 16, 17 years old, and he'd have a brick mason 300 pounds standing there that says, "Oh, I lift bricks all day and I'm a strong son of a gun, and boy, I think I'd be a good wrestler." And so Dad had just relished and said, "Well, I got this 16-year-old punk over here, and he's going to try you out." And he had us ready for those tryouts real good. And when you got plans and you're all cleaned up, you're ready to go out someplace and see your girlfriend, and you got to pull off your shirt and get all dirty out in the yard wrestling, you like to take advantage of that moment. And I always relished in the fact that I was able, with the training that he gave me, to stuff it up guys pretty good.
I guess, how big was your grandfather on kayfabe back then?
Oh, my grandfather was impossible when it came to that. If you didn't honor or respect the business, that he would beat the living hell out of you. And that's just the way it was. And he'd probably beat the living hell out of you anyway. But if you don't have respect for what you're doing, you got no business doing it. And that Roy taught my dad that, and he taught us that my father was so serious about wrestling that, for people that know that, there's blood in wrestling, and it's unlike people think so many times, they've always got a blood capsule or this and that. It's never been that case. I've never heard of a blood capsule, never seen one, don't know anything about any of that. But Dad figured there's an easy way to get blood, and I'm not going to get into that a lot, but you still bleed. But Dad believed that there was an importance, and my grandfather believed it too, and what they call a hard way. And you had to be nicked over your eye a little bit, hopefully the eye, because it's pretty easy to knuckle right over top of those eyes, and it's like you see it in boxing a lot. It's an easy cut. Dad and my grandpa used to say, it's the easiest way to get blood. It's like a little bee sting. If you do it right, boom, and it's over. And 30 seconds later, it don't hurt so bad. And you go down, get yourself stitched up. Dad believed that, and my grandpa believed that if you don't give that to your business, then you're not, you're taking and taking and taking, and you're never giving anything back. And so my grandfather would insist upon that, and hardly a man ever worked for him that didn't give that up. You'd have guys that come in and they would say, I know I got to go work for Roy Welch, or I got to go work for Buddy Fuller. By the way, his real name is Edward Welch, so he changed it because of wrestling. That they'd say, when you come in, go to work for us, then you have to realize that that's something you're going to have to give up. You're going to have to get hurt a little bit to do this job. This one a good way of saying it, and the easy way of saying it is, we're going to get beat up a little bit, but we're not going to hurt you. You can take that any way you want to.
Do you have any good road stories from early on that you want to share?
Oh gosh, man, tons of road stories. I'll tell you a lot of stories about my grandpa. When I was just a little fella, and Roy would take us to Memphis or to Nashville to the wrestling matches and whatever. That he was a funny type of guy. He'd ask you, "Are you hungry?" And just a little boy, and you'd say, "Yeah, Grandpa, I'm really hungry." And he'd say, "Boy, dadgum, man, I had a big steak and the baked potatoes and all the thing." And then he'd say, "Son of a gun, we don't have any time to stop and get you anything to eat." So then he'd go on and on about, "Boy, my steak was juicy and the whole thing." And then he'd say, you'd nod off, and he'd say, "You're getting a little sleepy over there, aren't you?" "Yeah, getting a little sleepy." So he'd light up his cigar and puff it good, and he'd watch you, and you start to doze off a little bit in the car, and he'd pop that cigar and put it up under your nose, get you breathe the ashes in, turn the radio up loud, and then his biggest trick was, boom, boy, bang you with that hand in the chest. But it was just a horror story. Riding down the road with my grandpa was a horror story, and he always had a bunch of horror stories to tell. That he'd seldom come home without a story or take us on a trip. And he'd say something. He didn't go in bars and stuff. He didn't drink. But he'd tell you about how he had to stop and use the bathroom or something on the road. And he went in this bar and here's this, he's starting out, and here's this roughneck standing at the door and says, "Well, you're not going out." And my grandpa had a loud way of acting and talking and wrestling in the ring. And he'd tell us, telling a small boy, me, the story. He'd say, "Boy, that guy blocked my way." And I said, "Get out of my way, USB." And he'd Bang! I hit that son of a boy hot dog, and boy, down he went, and I kicked him in the gut, and I kicked him in the head 4 times, and boy, that son of a gun was bleeding into a puddle of blood on the dadgum floor, and I stepped over that SB, boy, and I said, I'm going back in that dadgum bar, and nobody's ever going to say a dadgum ding, boy, son of a gun word to me, you know. As a kid, you're going, whoo, boy, I don't want no part of my grandpa. And, you know, and the strange part of that, it wasn't just me. The little boy sitting over there says, I don't want no part of him. There wasn't a guy sitting in that dressing room that wanted any part of him. That he was the man that figured, you're going to kind of fear me. Yeah, even to the point that later on, I start wrestling and grow up, you know, and I get in the wrestling business. And I realize how much respect that son of a gun really has, because he's gimp on one leg and he walks on a cane, but even an old guy walking on a cane and gimping along there. And when he walked in the dressing room, and I'd never noticed this because, you know, as a young guy, I just started wrestling, that when he walked over here, everybody'd get up and move over there. And I said, what? Then he'd, you know, well, he'd kind of walk over here, and they'd all get up and they'd move over there. They'd always just give him his space. And a couple of times that I saw guys that didn't, I learned why. He'd take that cane, bam, boy, knock you that gum head. And what, you know, new guy coming in, he don't know the story, so he just keeps tying his boots and he don't pay any attention to the get up and move. Well, you learn pretty fast that old Roy Welch demands that you get up and move.
Wow.
So that's the way he was.
What about your training? What are some of your memories of your early training in the ring?
Well, as a young boy, Dad always ran his own business. Always ran his own wrestling business. So we always had a ranch or farm or any place that we went, big barn. He always had his wrestling ring in the barn. All the wrestlers come over and do their training there at Dad's place. And so as a young guy, then Dad get us in the ring, and he thought it was necessary that we learn to hook. And hooking is as simple as just, if something's supposed to go this way and you turn it that way, then that's called hook. And it can be from a wrist lock to an ankle lock, or just anything that you do that turns the body in a way it's not supposed to go. And my father, even though, you know, wrestling, you know, we're trying to work together in the ring, but when you came to my father's barn to work out, and even the wrestlers themselves, they worked on hooking. And Dad figured that he couldn't give anybody a push in the wrestling business unless they had the credentials to be in that position. That he never thought that a guy could just come in. I'll give you an example. A Hulk Hogan that looks great. I mean, the most impressive looking person definitely in this business, and speaks so well. And so there's a lot of money there to be made with him. But still in the same category, then, he had not been to that barn situation, and he had not done that hooking. He had not known all of those advantages. So you get this guy that comes in, that's 300 pounds, and he's 6'9" and 300 pounds. He looks enormously effective to hurt you in the ring. But then Dad could just pull up his little referee over here that weighs 165 pounds, that's been in that barn doing that hooking, you know, and learned how to hurt you. And he'd take a guy like that and really seriously hurt him. So Dad figured, and my grandfather was on the same ticket, that if you didn't have the credentials to be a champion, meaning that if you had his championship belt and you're out on the street and somebody called you out in one way or another, and there's any possibility that you can't handle that situation, then you're not going to have that belt. It's just not going to happen. You know, my grandpa was the same way. Dad was the same way. You had to be, you had to be the right guy for the job, and that means you had to have the background. You not only had to have that amateur wrestling ability, you had to know how to do those hooks, and then you could have success in this business. And you also had to have seniority. Young guys starting out, I don't care how tough you are, young guy starting out, didn't get much of a break with my father or my grandfather. That, you know, he liked some seniority, he liked some maturity, and I thought that, you know, the money's not going to come. You're not going to do well with this guy unless you have that.
What are your memories of your first match?
My first match. I got out of high school, 1969, and I graduated in May, and about, I guess, the 1st of July, it was in the 1st of June there, Dad, we'd been working out with Corsica Gene, Corsica Joe, they were real good trainers at that time, and so Dad had my brother and I working out with them. And I'd wrestled in high school, and also I had some of the idea of the amateur styles in wrestling and what to do and all, how to take care of myself. Dad had taught us about the hooking and all, and so I thought, well, I'm probably going to be training a couple of years, and then I'll get a shot going in the ring and all. Well, I just come home from my graduation and all, and Dad's there. He says, congratulations, graduated and all. I said, hey, he said, by the way, July the 5th here, you know, you only got a month or so. You're going to have your first wrestling match. You know, I'm taking you to Tennessee. We lived down in Georgia and Atlanta at that time. Dad was the booker and owned Atlanta with Ray Gunkel. He didn't want to start us out there. He wanted to take us up there to Grandpa's place up there in Tennessee. And I went up and I did 5 shows, all just small towns like Dyersburg and Blytheville, Arkansas, and Jackson, Tennessee, and Union City, Tennessee, and then finished up my 5-day loop with Memphis. That was the big show. That was the big deal. And I remember the first match, professional match that I ever had, and I was in great shape. And I guess it was Union City, Tennessee, and I went in to wrestle this guy. He's 300 pounds. And the promoter was Leonard Feelings, and he came in the dressing room, and he don't know it's my first match. Nobody's told him. And so he's saying, well, this guy's a big old boy, but he said he's a little bit green. You might have to kind of carry him a little bit. And Dad got a real kick out of it because I told the promoter there, I said, I'll take care of him. Dad was like, yeah, you're going to take care of him. You never had a professional match in all your life. We didn't tell old Leonard that, so he never knew that. And I remember going out, and man, I was in the best doggone shape anybody could ever be in, but I had not wrestled in front of a crowd like that, you know, and had the responsibility of working a match, making it all work, without just going out and stuffing it up this guy, which would have been much, much easier. But instead, I had to go out there and cooperate, wrestle, and you know, and in doing that and being so nervous about it, what I remember the most about the first match I had is blowing up past running a 6-mile marathon. I mean, and I wrestled in school, and I was, you know, I ran in shape. I mean, I was just ripped. And here's this 300-pound guy, just blows me up like nobody's business. And so, you know, I go back in the dressing room, and Dad's in there, and he said, hey, kid, he said, you forgot to breathe, didn't you? That's what I remember. So I remember going out the second night in Dyersburg, Tennessee, and the thing that I'm remembering, don't walk out there to the ring and get all nervous about what you're doing and wind up just huffing and puffing before they even ring the bell. Because you done worked yourself up into a frenzy and you're unable to relax. And then if you don't relax, you're going to forget to breathe. And if you forget to breathe, you're going to blow up so bad. And then when it's time to need to gas a little bit, you're not going to have the gas there. So in that 5 days, that's the things that we worked on more than anything, was getting my breathing down and getting me to relax a little bit. And by the way, my brother Ron, he wrestled for 25 years and never overcame it. Never overcame it. Before the match, he's always, even his opponent, be sitting over here in the dressing room, and my brother's pouncing. He's up and he's down, and he's up and he's down, and he's ringing and he's tagging. And his opponent's sitting over there, and he's going, and I'm watching him too, and I'm looking at his opponent, and I'm going, yeah, he's crazy.
Uh.
so, I learned that in those 5 days. My brother was there with me, and he kind of started at, kind of the same time I did. And he had a tougher time with getting that breathing down, being able to relax, because Dad had always taught us to be so doggone serious about everything. So
you guys pretty much always tried to stick together, you and Ron?
I work with Ron a lot because Ron had a college education and a business education, and so Ron was always on a promotional edge of things, and he was always into the promoting, the booking, and more so than the wrestling. And he preferred that because then he didn't have to deal with all that stress of what he's going to do in the match and how things are going to go and everything. Yeah, so yeah. What was your question?
I was just asking if you and Ron tried to stick together a lot.
Earlier. Yeah, and we did. And as young guys in the business, I have to say I felt real confident and safe along with my brother because I knew, that particular time as young kids, my brother's 2 years older than me, and he could always beat me. We wrestle in the ring, and my brother always get the upper hand, and as in a circumstance where you got to take care of yourself, and things get a little brutal and everything, I had total confidence that my brother could handle that situation. And so, as young guys, in the time that we got into business, I mean, you had to have a little bit of respect, and you kind of had to take care of yourself, and guys had to like you. If they didn't like you, then they're not going to give you nothing in the ring. And if you're wrestling a guy, he's not going to give you nothing in the ring, then it's your place to go ahead and take it. And so, that's where all that training comes in. My brother and I, we kind of stood side by side. Not only my brother, Jimmy Golden, I know that's not the question, but family, and especially a strong, tough side of your family, standing there beside you in the ring, gave you a confidence to be able to go and do these things you want to do. You say, this guy don't want to give me that. Well, I've wrestled and I know how to take it. And so, you take it, then maybe he's not going to be very happy about that. And then one thing leads to another thing, leads to another thing. And it's good to have somebody there with you that can back you up on that.
What are your early memories of teaming with Jimmy?
Jimmy and I, same height, same weight. A lot of people thought he was me, I was him when we were young guys. We fooled him with that. We looked an awful lot alike. And Jimmy was a pretty tough guy. He could take care of himself good. He had a little chip on his shoulder that I didn't have. Life for me was always, that's all fine, Colonel Parker. I was like that when I was a young guy. But Jimmy always had a serious side to him. And so we mashed together with that. We went into the ring, and then I knew that about Jimmy, and he knew I was a happy-go-lucky son of a gun. And we just worked well together. We got a ton of respect working with guys. We went in and worked with guys, whether old or whether young, and they knew that these two kids can take care of themselves. And so, Jim and I did real good as a tag team, and we wrestled tag team for 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. How close were you to Buddy Fuller?
That my dad.
Yeah, you were pretty close with him as far as...
Yeah, that's old Ed Welch. And what happened with Dad, reason he got that Buddy Fuller name, he wanted to start wrestling in Tennessee in I guess the early 50s. And the Welches were so over in Tennessee, the Welch brothers, and that name was so big that when Dad came up, Roy said, "Hey kid, I don't want you wrestling, I don't want you stomping on her name, all this stuff." And Dad said, "Well, I really want to wrestle." And Roy was like, "Hey, we got a good name here." So Dad changed his name to Buddy Fuller. That's how that all came about. And it's the funniest thing how that comes back to bite you. If you go back and you find a wrestling history book and look into it, that Roy really cut off his arm and having my dad change his name to Buddy Fuller, because you'll find Buddy Fuller in there with a story, and you'll find Ron Fuller, and you'll find Robert Fuller, but you won't find one word about Roy Welch. that he just lost his legacy by not allowing Dad to be Ed Welch, or whatever name he called himself, Welch. And then when my brother and I started to wrestle, we took Dad's name, Ron Fuller and Robert Fuller, and we just left all that Welch behind, and then all those brothers just got lost in history. And they were the darndest dadgum wrestlers that ever was. My dad, man, I'm telling you what, he was a character I can tell you a story of being a young kid and just being 7 years old and learning from 7 years old, 6 years old, to start being tough. That Dad bought a farm, took us kind of out of the city there, about 6, 7 years old, Mobile, Alabama, and he had a pony in the barn, and he took me and my brother over and he showed us the pony through the slats, and we see a Shetland pony, and there's a saddle setting up on the fence, and Dad says, look at him, it's a dadgum pony, oh boy, but it's only one pony. And he says, what it's going to do, he said, whichever you boys ride the pony first, then you can have the pony. And the other one, they'll have to wait till later on, maybe someday we'll get another pony. Well, the magic of the deal was the pony was a little stud pony that would absolutely kill you. He would bite holes out of your body. He'd kick your guts out. Riding him, oh my goodness, you could pretty well just write that dadgum deal off. But long story short, my brother did ride him. And, later on. But that pony, every third time he'd ride him, buck him off, and, he'd kick him in the stall trying to put on the saddle, the whole deal. Well, that was my father. My father said, listen, anything you're going to do, you're going to work for it. It's going to be a little bit tough. There's a happy side to it. When the pony gets to be nice, then he's real fun to ride. But you're going to have to get to learn how to make him be nice. That's what it amounts to. We started learning that at a very young age, growing up on the farm. I remember stories that's so crazy. My dad, guys would come over to our farm and they would bring a horse. On one occasion, this guy brought this horse over and he says, "That's the horse." He said, he just buck you off, rear up and fall over on you. Just no way to ride him. And I'm wondering if you can get your cowboys over here to train him. So my dad says, well, he said, I'll tell you what. He said, old buddy, he said, leave the horse here. And he said, I guarantee you tomorrow my kids will be riding him. The guy said, oh gosh, that's a terrific deal. So he leaves the horse and he leaves. And we get a cowboy out there and he gets on the horse, and I'll be doggone, the horse rears up, falls over backwards on him and breaks his leg, the cowboy's leg. And then we can't catch him. He's running around, and he gets out of the gate and runs down into the wheat field, and he's thrashing up the wheat. So Dad just takes a railroad cross tie and throws it back into the truck, ties a rope to it, and we just run up beside the horse in the truck, and Dad just puts a loop right over that horse and then just stops the truck, and the horse keeps going. He jerks that cross tie off that truck and just takes off down through the field. So we just go on back to the house, and next morning we get up, we go looking for the horse. Well, we go back of the field and we find the horse, and he's laying back there with his tongue hanging out. He's dead. He strangled himself to death, pulling the cross tie. Wow. So Dad says, oh, I'll be danged. He says, son of a gun. He said, yeah, get the tractor. So he grabs the tractor and he takes the rope, ties around the back of the tractor, and he's going to drag the horse off to our dump there on the farm. And he gets the tractor and cranks it up. And he says, get on him, boys. And we jump on the horse, me and Ron. We're dragging him dead down the road. And me and my brother are getting on him and falling off of him. And dog boy, and we get down to the dump there, the big hill, and we shove him off the hill. And he rolled down the hill. And so we go back, and later on, the guy comes back to get his horse. And the guy says, how'd he do? Dad says, how's he doing? And Dad says, well, he said, he said he did pretty good. He said, the kids rode him. The kids rode him, said, but he didn't make it. Anyway, that was my dad. He was a tough son of a gun, and he had tremendous respect. I remember one time, too, while you got me here, I want to tell you this one more story. Definitely. This is great. I told you about the ring in the barn, right, and all the hooking and all the tough guys. He got this guy that comes over one day, and he says, it's a great big guy. good looking, great big guy. And he says, listen, he said, I know you got all these tough wrestlers over here. And he says, my wife and I are having a lot of trouble. And he said, I was wondering if you'd do me a favor. I want you to beat me up a little bit. Now, not serious stuff, bones and stuff, but just beat me up a little bit. And boy, he said that to the wrong guy. My dad said, no. He said, hell yeah. Yeah, well, we'll beat you up a little bit. He said, yeah, do you come to the right place? And boy, he took that son of a gun back up, son of a gun, ripped him and tore him and busted his eyes on both sides and sent him home with the stitches and all off. Yeah, it's just a character. Dad was just a character.
What are your memories of the Florida territory and Eddie Graham?
Eddie Graham was like a second father to me. I revered him as the best in the business, the very best.
As far as booking?
As far as everything. As far as wrestling, as far as booking, as far as everything. And I loved him. I mean, I absolutely loved him. He'd take me hunting and took me fishing. And of course, I was very good friends with Mike because of Dad and Eddie being such good friends that I knew Mike at a very young age. He'd stay 3 weeks in the summer with me, and I'd go down to Tampa and stay 3 weeks with him. When he came up and stayed with me, we worked all the time. His dad worked the fire out of us on the farm. When I'd go down and stay with him in Tampa, I didn't want to go back home because his life was so plush and nice, and we're swimming and we're just, we're out on the beach all the time, and and I go back home and Dad would say, well, dang, you get home from school at 3:15, I need you in the field at 3:30. So life was different. And when I went down to stay with Eddie, then he paid more attention. My dad was a different type of guy, and Eddie was just the perfect father. Boy, Mike was a lucky guy when it came to that I saw a side of Eddie a couple of times when I got into the business that were just darn right frightening. But as a young man, he flew an airplane. He took me on my first airplane flight. Like I said, he took me for my first time hunting. He just such a kind, such a great father, and such a good man. But man, I remember later on seeing Eddie in some ways that I just said, man, I kind of missed the boat on this guy. That he's one of the meanest son of a guns I ever saw in all my life. I worked in the office a little bit in Tampa back in the early 70s, and I got that break because of Dad wanting me to be near some of that booking and some of that stuff. So I had an office right next to Eddie, just a little pew there with my desk and stuff. And boy, I thought I was really into things being next to Eddie Graham. And Eddie had a guy come into his office one day, and I hear him in there talking. And so Eddie, the door swung open, and Eddie, I hear the big, "Pow!" Boy, the cussing, the son of a gun. And I come around and look inside that door, and that Eddie is on this guy, just beating the living heck out of him. And you go through my office, and it was Louis Tilley, and he had an office there, and then you went out into a hall, and then there was a big stairs going down, and boy, he kicks the guy out through the office into the hall, down the stairs, bloom, da doom, da doom, da doom, da doom, da doom, and out the little glass door at the bottom, and then the guy running down the street, and all bloody and beat all to hell, and Eddie chased him down the street about a block, and the guy take off, and Eddie come back in the office, and just as cool like that, he looked at me and he said, SB sat on my desk. I said, remind me never to sit on your desk there, Pop. So Eddie was an incredible guy. Yeah.
What about Jack Briscoe? Some of your early memories of Jack?
Jack, one of the nicest people. A tough son of a gun. As a young guy growing up in the business, there was no young guys that started in the state of Florida that didn't just see Jack Briscoe as just God made for wrestling. I mean, he was absolutely perfect, and he was used that way. Eddie loved him like a son. Jack was incredibly tough as a shooter. I mean, you'd have guys come down there, and Jack was so nice, you'd never do it. They had what they call a snake pit down there in the old Sportatorium in Tampa. And boy, it was bad news to go in there that, you had Matsuda and Bob Roop and Gordon Nelson. They're just had 15 guys that hung around that area, and you didn't want to go in there and mess with them. And Jack seldom went in there because he didn't like that brutal side of things. But if Jack went in there, he took them all down, every single one of them. And you just and then that big smile. You see Jack, you want to grab him and hug him. He's just that type of guy. So, and Gerald, his brother. I know the question wasn't about Gerald, but there's two tough guys right there, and both of those guys, man, to know them is to love them.
What about Nick Gulas?
Nick Gulas, that dadgum Nick, he was my grandpa's partner. Roy Welch and Nick Gulas were partners for years and years, and Nick and Roy had this deal going that it was like the good cop, bad cop dressing room. That if you came in, you had a problem with your payoff, then you talked to Roy. Roy was the cutthroat, mean, hooking, hurt you. But here's what you'd get, this smile. Oh, how you doing today? Oh, the whole thing. And Nick played the bad cop. And Nick would say, boy, don't get that son of a gun, no dad got money. Roy would say, hey, Nick, hey, get out of here. I'm talking to the guy myself. Where Roy's the one that really ain't going to give you the money. And he's the guy that's going to bang you right in the nose if you got too big a problem about it. Nick, on the other hand, wasn't a violent man. He didn't wrestle himself, and he just was a promoter. But one thing that Nick had, and boy, he could do it with young guys, I guess better than anybody I ever saw in this business, that Nick would bring a fire outside of you. He would bring something out of you that it was easy for me as a young kid to be a salesman in this business. I worked with a lot of older guys that had seniority, and I'd give them an awful lot. I'd sell and sell and sell and sell. And my theory for wrestling was that, and Dad loved it, he wanted us to feel this way, was that you got to get those people not just to the edge of their seat and not just standing because of excitement, but you got to sometimes bring them into the ring. I mean, right up to the edge of the ring, then into the ring, because they're fearing for the danger of you losing your life. I mean, that's serious, and that's where you want that thing to go. That Nick Gulas could take that type of guy that can sell and sell and sell and just bring those people to the edge of the seat, do that whole deal, and he'd give you something to add with it, and it was called fire. And he'd say, okay, boy, I said, all I want, boy, I want you to go out there, I want you to fire, I want to see you come up, I want to see you fight them, come out there like boy, that dog. So you do that selling, and that's what makes the match. And then once you get all that going, then you say, you got to have that fire on the end, or you didn't finish the story. So Nick, where you're with Eddie, or you're working with Dad, then they're more serious about the selling than they are that giant comeback. And Nick was the best in the world at taking a young guy and saying, oh, God dang, what's wrong with you, kid? You're flat. I need you to pick up on it. God dang, get up there, swing, man, punch, you son of a gun. He was quite a character. And by the way, he's another guy. He was a shyster, son of a gun. He's the type of guy who give you $15 where he owes you $100. And then you grind, oh boy, that thing, and pull that big old wad out of his pocket. He always had a big wad of money in his pocket with a paper clip. And he had $100 bills and stuff in there. He'd rip off another 20 for you. He owes you 100, so now you got 35. You're going to be happy you're going to be happy with your 35 where you're due 100, Nick. But I knew that about Nick, and I was able to get the 100 because I knew it about him. I knew it about him. So I had a very good relationship with Nick, and I always have to tell people, I hear guys say, oh, that old Nick Gulas, he was a sorry son of a gun. What a dadgum cheat and liar and whatever. But He was a businessman, not a cheat, not a liar. And he had that give it to the young guy stuff. And he started more young guys on a successful track. Probably than anybody I know in this business. I have a great respect for Nick Gulas.
What about Dusty Rhodes? What are some of your early memories of the American Dream?
Oh, man. Dusty was one of those guys. Now, Eddie and Dad were booking partners and down when Dusty came into Florida
Right.
and really got himself on a roll. Dad wasn't real big on Dusty because Dad said he don't have those credentials. You know, he said, Eddie, come on, he's not in shape. He's over 300 pounds. He you know, you put the championship belt on him, somebody's going to stuff it up his butt. Somebody's going to give him a hard time along the line here. And Eddie said, hey, buddy, he said, this is where we draw the line. You know, this is where we draw the line between hooking, tough, and making money in this business. Eddie was right on the money. He was right. This business was taking a change. Might have been good if it had taken a change a little bit earlier. But Dusty was one of these guys that stepped in there, and man, and Eddie just fell in love with Dusty. And so Dad had to sit back. Dusty and maybe there's sometimes a little hard feelings between Dusty and I where nothing's ever happened between Dusty and I except me just getting along with him and liking him and him the same way. But he kind of knew the way my father felt about him, and it was hard then not for it to bleed over on my brother and me. But I'll tell you, my personal feelings about Dusty, greatest showman, the greatest showman. Even today, I can't sit down with Dusty Rhodes 2 seconds without rolling, cracking up, laughing. I mean, he just got it. He just got that. I mean, he just and to be honest with you, and getting to know him and being around him, oh, Dusty's a tough son of a gun. I mean, boy, I've seen him give it up for this business. And so I think probably where it came my dad and Dusty, my dad, one of the times that he was a little bit off the ball. He missed where Dusty was concerned because Dusty was a tough guy, and Dusty gave it up for the business, and Dusty was talented, man. I mean, you just try, just work, watch him, and just do your very best to be like him, and you're gonna do yourself some favors in this business.
What are some of your memories teaming up with Kevin Sullivan early on in your career?
Oh, Kevin. Kevin and I rode together, and you know, we're about the same age. Kevin and I, same age. And so we had a lot in common, and you know, our wives hung out together, and you know, and I sold him I bought a St. Bernard puppy, most beautiful little puppy, St. Bernards, you know, but we live in apartments, and so they grow up. So when the puppies started growing up and they got up, you know, getting pretty big, you know, I realized I'm not going to be able to keep this dadgum dog. So I brought Kevin and his wife over, and I said, hey, you know, I'm going to get my dog, and I pawned my dog off on Kevin. Oh, today he said, you son that dog. Every time we mentioned about that dog, because that doggone dog got, dadgum, he got 4 foot high. Oh, he crapped dadgum poo-poo that long in his dadgum floor, and Kevin told me, he said, hey, son of a gun, your dadgum dog, he's crapped all over my house. He's on anything. You can't housebreak him. You can't, oh, God, he eats tubs of food and all that. Kevin, you know, you got to learn to love him and relax and hold him. Wrestling, Kevin Sullivan, I got the best story. Kevin and I would go on Friday nights working for Nick and Roy, and we worked for John Kazanis in Knoxville, Tennessee. And they had the Wright brothers, Don and Ron Wright. Me and Kevin were a tag team, and it's a successful tag team, but young, but demanding respect. And we get over to Knoxville, and we're working in an angle with Don and Ron Wright. And Don and Ron Wright, they're heel guys, and they don't have any wrestling rules. They don't do things like other people do. Ron Wright's got what he calls a chisel that he puts he has tape wrapped around his hand, and he's got a blade of stainless steel that sits this way on top of that tape that goes around. And he would sit in the dressing room and he'd file it. He'd take his file and he'd file that chisel. Well, me and Kevin, we're going to work with him. And we're sitting in the dressing room there, and Ron Wright's sitting down a little bit, and he's just sitting there, and he's got that chisel, and he's chiseling like that, but he just got eyes just like that, looking right at Kevin. Well, you know, Kevin puts on his shoes, and he looks up, and there's old Ron Wright. And he goes, "What you staring at me like that for?" And Ron Wright says, "I'm not staring at you, boy." You know, old hill country guy. And Kevin says, "He's from Boston. Ron don't like him. He don't like the way he talks. He don't like the
Right.
Boston demeanor." And so he's filing away, and so Kevin gets his stuff done, and he looks back, and Ron's still just like that, right in the face. And Kevin says, "Hey," he says, "I hope you're not thinking about hitting me with that." And Ron says, "Hey, boy," he said, "I hit everybody that comes up here with this." And he said, "You ain't no different to me." And Kevin says, "Hey, you're not going to hit me with that." And Ron says, "I hit everybody that comes up here, boy, and I'm going to hit you too." And Kevin says, "You're not going to hit me with that thing." He said, "You hit me with that and I'll kill you." And Ron gets the biggest kick out of that. "You're going to kill me, are you? Yeah, all right, old Nelson." We go out and do the match. Bang! 13 stitches. So Kevin Sullivan across the head there. Come back inside. Nobody got killed. But Kevin was a tough kid. But boy, dog, me and Kevin, we had to realize that these doggone Tennessee hills don't belong to us. And we come over here in these hills in Knoxville, they do things a little bit different. And we'd be best then to handle that situation, Kevin, where he don't hit you next week too. You know, like just blow it off and you know, and get to be his friend and say, "Oh, well, you hit me, man. Hot dog, boy, it hurt. I got my stitches." "It's all right, man. That was a good deal. Big joke. Don't hit me again now." One of those type of deals. Kevin smartened up real fast and said, "Well, I think I'll play this game the smart way and do exactly that, instead of going back to the dressing room and trying to kill him." And that worked out pretty good.
Huh.
Kevin and I, we traveled up and down the roads during those young days in Tennessee. And if I went to telling you stories about old Kevin Sullivan, I'd be sitting here tomorrow.
What about the Georgia territory? You went over to Georgia and you got to team up with Bob Armstrong.
Yeah. Bob was getting a pretty good shove, and he was one of the guys. Bob was one of the guys. He worked for my dad. He had to get that respect. They had a match for a Cadillac. They was going to give away a Cadillac. Bob was going to win the Cadillac. So Dad said, "Well, now this is a big deal. We got a sellout house." I think it was one of the first times ever to be in the Omni. They built the Omni. They wrestled downtown in the auditorium in Atlanta. And so they went in the big Omni, and so naturally they got the biggest house they ever had in Atlanta at that particular time. And it's going to wind up Bobby Duncombe and Bob Armstrong in the ring, and then Duncombe's going to bust Bob Hardway. And Duncombe had never done that much, and you got to kind of know what you're doing to bust a guy sometimes. You'll hit him so hard, and you'll try so hard, but you don't know how to cut him. You don't know how to do it. And so you wound up hitting Bob, I guess 6-8 times in order to bust him, and he finally did. He finally got him. Boy, he slid him open good, but beat the living heck out of him in doing it. And Bob had the option to say, "That's enough." And boy, and Bob Armstrong, it hurt, but he wouldn't dare give up. He said, "You know, if you have to hit me 20 times, you're going to bust this out. You're going to do it. I don't care what it takes." And boy, I'm telling you what, getting a chance then to work with Bob, be a friend of his, and travel up and down the road with him, taught me so many things. Had no rhythm. Bob's mother was a dancer, so he had that tap dancing, anything you want to do. We get in the car, ride into town, pull up the bongos, put the bongos between, and every song we played on the radio, See, everything was rhythm to him. And there was me, growing up on the old farm there, fairly tough kid, but not a bit of rhythm. Couldn't dance, and never had any girls say, why don't you ever dance? Well, heck, I couldn't dance, wouldn't give it a try. I hang around with Bob Armstrong a while, and I'll be doggone if the rhythm don't bleed over on me. And all of a sudden, I started dancing, and I said, give me those bongos. I'm thinking we got harmonicas, and the bongos got do. I mean, got as good as he was. I have to say, old Bob Armstrong gave me rhythm, man. I love him for it. And a million other things, too. Growing up around him, all of his kids, Brad and Scott and Steve and all of his boys, they were like my boys. I mean, we were that close, me and Bob Armstrong. And I'll tell you what, I was talking about wrestling tag teams and different guys that might have a little chip on their shoulder, and you had to kind of watch out for them a little bit. You didn't have to watch out much of Bob Armstrong in the ring. That he was a very volatile person if you got on his wrong side. I knew that about him, so I didn't get on his wrong side. And I always felt very safe being around him. And we worked real good as a tag team. Got to be great friends, and have been for, again, 30 years. Me and Bob came up together.
What are early memories of Jerry Lawler? Some of your early memories of Jerry in Georgia? Because I think you get to work him, right? A couple times?
Yeah, in Georgia. In Tennessee, I started working with Jerry. The first times that I ever really worked with him. And I had a couple of bad occasions with Jerry. One thing, Jerry and I are about the same age. And Jerry, I didn't have a tremendous amount of respect for because he had never been to the barn. He'd never been to the snake pit. He just wasn't a tough guy. But Jerry Jarrett and Nick thought there in Tennessee that he was a racehorse that would win every race. And as far as bringing people into the house, it was one of them Dusty deals. He could just do it. Great talker, great thing. I worked at Angles with him, and he interviewed so good, and he could tear you down so good. It'd bring the best out of you when you got your opportunity to interview, because when he got done interviewing, I wanted to kill him. I mean, I honestly said, I'm going to kill this guy. And then when I went out to do my interview, I said that, and I meant it. And, and he knew it. And so when we got in the ring, I used to I'd crowd him. I'd just get up on him. He'd get back in that corner, boy, and I'd get right in on him. And I'd let him know, listen, I'm going to put you over in this dadgum match, but I can kick your ass 15 different ways anytime I want to do it. He didn't like that one bit. So me and Jerry had we had that thing between us that he just rather not work with me. Matter of fact, he even went to the office and talked to Nick and talked to Jerry, and he said, take me out of an angle with Rob. And we were selling out towns. Back I'm talking about the 70s, we're making $1,000 for work in Memphis.
Wow.
I mean, back in the early 70s, and we're both kids, but he went in and dumped it. He said, listen, I want to get away from this guy because he's crazy. He said, well, I'm crazy. He thought I'm crazy, and he did his job maybe a little too well for me. Man, that was a tough deal. But you was talking about Atlanta. You asked me the question about Atlanta. When I wrestled Jerry Lawler in Atlanta, real good story, Jim Barnett was the owner, and Jim Barnett loved me, boy. He was one of my greatest pushers in this business, make me what I am today. He had just mediocre feelings for Jerry Lawler. But we're not working for Nick and Jerry anymore, Jerry Jarrett. We're working now for Jim Barnett. And Jim's got different theory. Now I want Robert to look good. So we got this match in Atlanta, sellout house. We got I forget what the stipulations were on the match, but brutal type of match. So I got some blood, boy, and we're fighting around. And the finish was Jerry Jarrett was still doing the booking for Barnett, but Barnett, the owner, so he's not going to let him run over me. And Jarrett says he's got this finish where I'm going to make a big comeback on Jerry, and boy, I'm going to slam him down, and I'm going to put him in a crooked head scissor, where his head comes up between my legs, and I just latch him off and head's in there, and I'm just kind of pounding on him, And so while I'm doing this, Jerry's going to rip my wrestling laces out and tie my shoes together. And then fight his way free. And then when I get up, not knowing my shoes are tied, and I'm bleeding and everything, then I stumble, I fall, and then he's going to really hand me my butt. He's going to beat the living heck out of me and beat me. Well, Jim Barnett comes in, and Jerry Jarrett's guy, he tells me this finish before Jim comes in. And I listen to that, and I just go, whew. God, I was taught never to disagree with the booker. Never, 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 and I just say, oh my God, I can't do that. No, I can't do that for anybody, let alone Jerry Lawler. I can't, it makes me look so stupid. I can't do that, So, but I don't say that. I just kind of pussyfoot around with it, and where I should have just come right out and said the way that I felt. And so Jim comes in, and he sees me over there. And he said, what's wrong with you? And I said, well, just, finish and all. Well, he says, Jerry, what's the finish? And Jerry says, well, he says, we're going to do this deal, and Jerry Lawler's going to tie his shoes and all. And so Jim Barnett says, the old goody two-shoes finish. It's the way he talked, and he says, well, you're not going to do that to Robert. He said, so
everybody does that impression.
Yeah, yes. So Jerry, he's just fun puzzle. Oh, we did it in Memphis. We did thing. The thing works. It's really great. It's really going to work. It's really going to thing. And so Jim Barnett looks at me and he says, what do you think, Rob? And here's old pussyfooting Rob sitting over there. Don't open your mouth to the booker and all. And I say, well, dragging along. And Jim says, do it. He gets up and walks out. And I'm right back where I was. Oh, he's going to tie my shoe. Anyway, we go in and do it. We do it. Come back in the dressing room. I'm flaming mad. Jim sees it, the whole deal. Returns the match the next week, lights out match. Double blood. I win. Here's the deal. Come back into the show the next week. Jim tells Jerry Jarrett, he says, Jarrett, he said, I'm taking care of this finish myself tonight. He says, okay. He gets us together and he says, okay. He says, here's what we're going to do. He says, well, first of all, he said, we're going to get some blood, and Robert's going to get the blood, and you get enough to heat. And he said, and then when it's your turn, then Robert, he said, then you turn it on him, and he said, you just beat to really make you a great comeback there. And he says, and Jerry, he said, by the way, he said, you don't get good blood. So he said, Robert will cut you. Oh, I just say, oh, heavenly goodness. Oh, heavenly goodness. So Jerry Lawler turns a sheet of white, just like a sheet. Just, oh gosh, because he knows that old Rob boy, I don't play around. I'm going to cut him. I'm going to cut him. And he don't do that. He's a little nick guy. There's no blood, just a little stream here. But so I say, you're going to bleed tonight. Here's the deal. The old goody two-shoes was all right, but now we're on a different deal here. And Jim says, just get him bleeding real good and beat him with a small package right in the middle. Done deal. Jerry's as crushed there as I am the week before. Now you look at Jerry Lawler and he's just, and scared past anything you can ever see. Always been a little scared, that guy anyway. But anyway, we go out. Boy, I get the blood and he's beating on him, tearing me up. And boy, it's my turn. And boy, I take him, make a little comeback on him, and shoot him over the top. I said, I'll shoot you over the top. Just give you a little bill over here, and I'm going to stretch your hair up. Don't move. I'm going to cut you. So, boy, I take him over the top and grab his hair real good and tight. Just snatch it up good where it stretch that skin up real tight on his head like that. And I take that blade and I start cutting across his head. And I'll be doggone, it's the strangest dadgum thing. I cut him maybe that long, and his head just kind of falls apart, but he don't even bleed. No blood comes out. And I go, hell, that ain't gonna work. So, and he's got hold of my hand. He's grabbed my arm now because he don't want me to cut anymore. So he's grabbing my arm. He's cutting off my circulation. He's squeezing so hard. And I say, no blood, brother. And I just take it on about another half inch. And man, the blood goes out of his head 15 feet across the thing. People on the front row are getting wet with blood. So he sees that blood come out of his head like that. And he just freaks, and I have to let him go. He's like a fish. He just bouncing all around in the ring, and blood's just blang, boy, just filling the ring with blood. I can't get over to stop him. I can't hit him. I can't do anything to him because I can't. He's just all around the ring. So I finally get him, to punch him in that blood a couple of times and give him the old small package and beat him. And so I go back in the dressing room and jerk off my clothes and I head for the shower. And I say, okay, he's going to come in here and he's going to be really mad and we're going to fight. I said, that's just the way it is. If you do that to me, then I'm going to come back in the dressing room. And if you're tough, I'm going to get a ball bat or a chair leg or something, but I'm going to get you for it. And I'm looking for that. And so he comes in. He's mad, but he don't want to fight. And he looks at me. We're working all the towns all week long. Like we got 4 more days straight in a row wrestling together. And he says, oh, almost tearful. Look what you've done to me. Oh my God. He said, oh, you'll never cut me again. I said, Jerry, I won't have to. You're going to bleed every time I touch you. Oh man, his face, he's just like, oh dear God, I got to work with you tomorrow. He's saying, oh yes. And even just said, I won't have to cut you, man. I said, no, every time I grab you, you're going to just bleed. I'm just thinking the matter. Jerry Lawler and I always had that little thing going on. And we got forced into some situations where different personalities, different types of guys had to go in and work matches together.
Right.
We were tremendously good at it, but it was very, very difficult for him. Okay, what's your question now?
Let's talk about Mr. Wrestling 2 and some of your memories of him and the Garvins.
Oh boy, Mr. Wrestling 2. We're talking about old Johnny Walker there. And Johnny, one of the toughest guys that ever worked in this business. Great friend of my father. Because he was a great friend of my father, he wouldn't beat me up. I had a few run-ins with Johnny, too, because I thought a lot of times that he was much more concerned with himself and how he got over. I did tag team matches with him and different things, and I would sell and tag him. And then, then he'd make a big comeback, and then he'd either win the match or they would somehow beat me. And, and there was times in which Johnny would do things like after they beat me, instead of coming to me to my aid to say, oh, kid, you're really hurt and show me some sympathy, he would beat the hell out of the other 2 guys and the stuff and the thing and chase them back to the dressing room and come back and tell them, come on back, get back in the ring and all this stuff. And then one time in particular, that exact thing happened. And Johnny came over to me and he said, after he had done his big skit and everything, and I'm there selling, the ring's bouncing up and down, and I'm dead there, and everything. And I say, and I'm mad about it because I'm saying, first things first, you fight them to get them off of me, and then they leave. You don't chase them to the dressing room, and you don't come back then and say, come on back, I want to beat you up. You as soon as they leave the ring, you turn right around and you say, oh, the kid, and you come and see, and we do our little deal together. So on this one particular time I'm talking about, Johnny had done that, and he came to me and said, doing his stuff over the top of me, and I look up at him with a real sympathetic face, and I say, oh, you care? And boy, flames fly out of his eyes. He says, you ungrateful, dadgum little punk, you. And so, I'm like, well, who cares what you think? You absolutely off the ball here. I'm totally credited with what I'm telling you. I'm absolutely right. You know it and I know it. We go back in the dressing room, and boy, and Johnny comes in there. I'm in the shower, and he says, I'm going to tell you something, boy. And he could hand me my butt, too, probably. And he said, you know what? He said, it had been 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, I'd have really beat you up out there. And I said, well, so much for so much. And I said, still, I'm right. The deal that Johnny, he's a great guy. He's a great guy, but very serious about his character and his business. And he was one of these guys that, as a babyface, knew how to take care of himself. I mean, he wasn't going to worry so much about how I was looking or anything as to how he looked. He took care of himself. And man, did he get over. And out of that ring, again, boy, I mean, he was like a second father. And his wife, Olivia, and my mother, best friends, and she just treated me like a son. And Johnny was just a great guy. You asked me about somebody else.
The Garvins.
Yeah, the Garvins. The Garvins, Terry Garvin, he had that homosexual character, best in the business that ever was about it. The only guy that ever recognized that and did it right was Jerry Jarrett. He got that pink mat, and they changed the mat, put down the paint for him, and had him do the Gorgeous George thing. They really got the best out of Terry Garvin. Ronnie Garvin, on the other hand, what a sick pup, man. He was and Ronnie and I, Ronnie's a young looking guy, even today, but Ronnie's like 10 years older than me, but you would never know it. If you looked, you'd say, gosh, me and Ronnie were the same age. And me and Ronnie, we had some problems, and I had to work with him an awful lot. As a young guy, totally listened to everything that he said. And what a ringmaster, boy. I just said, I ain't going to do a thing that Ronnie don't tell me, because if I follow Ronnie's lead, we are going to tear this house down. No question about it. As I got a little older in the business and started getting a little more, I know my stuff, and a little more cocky about what I do and everything, that Ronnie and I didn't get along as well. Ronnie was like, hey, follow me. Like I say, it'll always be good. It's always going to turn out good. And I always thought, well, I follow you. Maybe you're going to take a little more than maybe you ought to, and maybe we should do a little bit more stuff that I want to do. And so then Ronnie got a little hard feelings about me, and we had some problems in the ring from time to time, even to the point of shooting. And Ronnie's one of the few people that I had to go with. I just had to go with my feelings where Ronnie was concerned, and we had some trouble a couple of times. Today, looking back on Ronnie Garvin, boy, gosh, dog, love him like a brother, man. But I thought back in the days of Atlanta when I was working for Jim Barnett and stuff, Jim trying to give me a push, and I'd get a match with Ronnie Garvin, and I went, whoa, that is scary, because that ain't a push. Because Ronnie had that little chip up here, and he went, hey, kid, you're going to do what I say. I said, well, maybe not. He's like, well, we're going to see. I said, well, we're going to see, aren't we? We go in the ring with that. That's, we might have done a little better when I was a young boy listening to him. But Ronnie, he's a great guy and absolutely terrific performer in the ring. And I miss him today.
What are your thoughts of Ole Anderson as a booker?
Ole as a booker? Man, I'll tell you what. I'll say first, Ole and Gene, man, when I was a young guy coming up in this business, and wow, get a chance to work with those guys. There was nothing like it. I mean, there was nothing like that. To me, greatest tag team that time ever lived. I don't know about today. Maybe it's today, maybe the greatest one that ever lived. They had that timing. They had everything together. Ole as a booker, you know, you're asking a guy who booked for 15 to 20 years himself. Always thought it was better, but I don't think Ole was the best booker that I ever worked for, but he certainly got his job done, and he, you know, he worked for some good people handling the book. Ole, boy, he was a funny type of guy. Ole and I again had some stuff going on between us. And Ole one time, you know, the old deal, tell the guy shoot you in the ropes, you're gonna come off and give him a boot. You know, go for a backdrop. And he said, no, you're gonna give him a backdrop, and instead I'm gonna give you the kick. You know, and that's always, you just leave that chest open and you just put that boot bang right up in a good hard slap up under there, and you know, and then he takes over. You know, get up that heat and stuff. And so I'm working in Macon, Georgia, with him and Gene, just a young guy, and he said, shoot me in backdrop, and I'll give you that boot. And you could stiff, but you know, that's the way guys work that were smart. You know, they want to be a little bit stiff, make it look good. And I shoot that dadgum Ole in, and he kicks me in the mouth and takes the skin off my bottom lip from like the edge to the middle, just a hump. Not a way you can sew it up, just a top layer of skin there, pretty good. Ripped my bottom lip off, what it amount to with the laces on his boot. Kicked me like you'd kick in the chest with that bang, good hard kick, but right there, boy, and it just ripped stuff off. A few things like that. I always wondered, you know, you can make a mistake, things can be a little bit off, but I always wondered, was that a mistake? You know, things like that. Ole, I'm not sure that Ole wasn't just a tough guy that just from time to time took it on himself to do some things like that. Oh, anyway, I had that with him, and then when I worked with Ole as a booker, when he was booking, I really never thought that I got the proper respect that I should have gotten, and so I didn't really see him as being one of the best bookers I ever worked for. But as far as being with him and Gene, wrestling in the ring, maybe the best tag team that I ever remember working for.
You also worked for Southeastern Championship Wrestling, right?
Booked it.
Booked it, okay.
Yeah.
Talk about that experience. And did you like working down there?
Yeah, what happened, I was working for Jerry Jarrett, and my brother owned that. Ron was the owner of Southeastern Wrestling, and they were having some struggles. They had the assassin, Jody Hamilton, booking for them, and they had Ronnie Garvin over there. They had Big Bad John as his manager, and I mean, my gosh, when, you know, they called me up. Ron is in trouble. His territory's not doing good. And I went over to take the book. And when I went over and looked at the crew, Southeastern, I see Ronnie Garvin going out to the ring with a manager that is twice his size and talks better than Ronnie. Ronnie had a problem at that particular time talking. I saw Ronnie Garvin's problem with talking. And I think today, if you was to ask him, hey, man, you became a great interviewer. And I think he would probably say, Robert Fuller had a lot to do with that, because I forced him to speak. When I went over there he is not talking, and he had Jimmy and Terry doing all the talking while they're a tag team, as the triple tag team deal that they did. Ronnie hardly ever said a word. His deal was, well, lay back, I'm the wrestler, I'm the good wrestler, I don't have to say nothing and stuff. So they got Big Bad John. So I go in there, they got the whole territory is just scrambled up. They got good guys, but they're all in the wrong position. They got a baby face, it should be healing. They got a heel, thinks he's a baby face. They got Ronnie Garvin with a manager that's twice his size, doing all the talking. Who's got the heat? Big Bad John. He ain't drawing no money. He's not the one in the ring, wrestling the guy. And I sat down, look at all of that, and I say, well, it's a pretty easy little deal. I'm just going to change him here. He wants to go anyway. Change him here. They want to go anyway. And in doing that, I'm going to do it with a class act. I'm going to figure up some angles. Going to really make some sense to get these guys where I want them to be. And it's like a football team. I got a guard
should be an end. Got an end, ought to be a running back. You know, I had to change everybody around till I get everybody in the spot they're supposed to be in. Look at it, boy. 6 months later, and I say, man, I got a team here. They were all good, just wasn't being used right. And that's why booking is so important, to have the right guy to be able to see that and to fix it, and fix it quick, because heading the wrong way, house going to go down, tickets don't sell. That's the way the deal is.
How'd you make the transition from being a worker to, starting the book?
Well, it was kind of in my blood because of my grandpa and because of my dad. I was more flamboyant than either one of those guys. I mean, loose and happy-go-lucky, and I didn't have that serious side like my brother had, and I get along with guys real good. A lot of guys, I was talking to my wife just the other night. I bumped into Thunderbolt Patterson, and I just love him, man. And I'm introducing my wife to him. I'm telling my wife afterwards that Thunderbolt, one of the best workers that had ever worked this business, black workers that ever worked this business, the best maybe. Boy, he could just talk people into the house. He had that class. He could do it, but nobody could get along with him. I mean, he just had a tough time people understanding him and him understanding them, just working together with people. And boy, he and I were just like two brothers. I mean, just anything I wanted. Like, he may work for another guy and he may say, he said, boy, I'll tell you what, he's already got a chip on his shoulder. So I'm going in, he's going to ask me to do a job for somebody, and I ain't going to do it. Nobody's going to do me like that. See, but he comes into my show. I had a way of dealing with guys where they didn't tell me no. And they didn't get mad at me and go out and do it anyway, and then have the chip on their shoulder and say, well, I went and did it, but I don't like that son of a gun. I had a way of reasoning with guys, and it's the same thing that any booker, even today. I mean, it's time to be stern, and it's time to say this is what I want, and it's time to have your argument, and it's time. But you got to be able to reason with and stay friends and have an understanding as a booker, so that guys want to do. They come to the show and they say, listen, this house is sold out, and it's because of me. I'm on top. I'm the main event. But that guy over there doing this writing and doing this booking, they had a total understanding. He makes me what I am. He allows me to use my talents all out. He gets everything out of me. He knows my heart. He knows my abilities, and I trust him for it. And that's what it takes to be a good booker in this business. You got to have that trust. You got to be good at it.
Memories of some of your matches with the Sheepherders.
Oh, goodness. Oh, brutal. Brought those guys over. It was Luke and Jonathan Boyd at that time. And boy, you talking about a guy with a chip on his shoulder, Jonathan Boyd. I mean, volatile. Just that far from a fight all the time. All the time. Getting them over, I worked with them mostly myself, and getting them in a position I wanted to be before I started putting them with other guys, because I had a picture of the way I wanted to use that Boyd and that deal. And I bled a lot, got a lot of blood for those guys. And I got them over by naturally putting them over. And then on the other side, getting that blood and fighting those guys, man. I mean, the old deal, they'd call me old Luke Williams. Today, he said, every time he sees me, he says, I'm fighting Rob, man. I ain't no guy like I'm fighting Rob, man. Because he said, boy, that was the deal. They'd get that blood, and then they'd stay on me, and I'd fight. Don't give up, don't give up, don't give up. Fight, then die for a second, then, man, fight. You're trying to get that tag and you can't get it, and gosh, no. And you fight and you're almost there, and Boyd sticks a foot in that ring, and referee turns and bang, there's that tag, and nobody sees it. That thing of getting that crowd to say, the kid can't make it. He's not going to make it. He's not, gosh, dog, and standing up and making that move forward and wanting to come in that ring. And there was Jonathan Boyd and Luke, and they could do it, man. They could do it. But you had to have the worker. You had to have that thing behind them to get them right, to where the people saw them the way that you wanted them to be seen. But they were a different type of tag team. Not a lot of wrestling stuff, just pounding, beating. And I saw all of that, and I said, hey, you got to bleed for these guys. You got to bleed for them a lot. You want them to get to where they're going to be. And boy, did we get them there, man. We got those guys over, and we sold out for a year and a half every dadgum show with them. I mean, they were red hot. When they first came into our territory, my brother said, I don't know if those guys really. I said, well, we don't have a whole lot of dadgum selection of who we're going to push, man, right now. So they're here, and we've hired them, and let's see what we can do about getting them over. And my brother kind of struggled with me over that. He owned the territory, but I did the booking, and so he allowed me my free hand, but he kind of gave me his negative side of things. And boy, about 3 months into Jonathan Boyd and Luke Williams, and my brother said, man, he said, boy, have you got them guys hot. They're a great tag team.
You guys were also...
And then later, Butch
Right.
came in, and Butch was also good. But boy, that Boyd deal was great because of the edge, because just that edge of that demon inside of him, that mean son of a gun that going to beat up one of my boys any time. And it showed in the ring. It just came across. Dangerous tag team.
Now, you were involved in also, I think, the angle that formed the original Midnight Express, correct? With Dennis and Randy?
Oh, yes. Yeah. That was Dennis and Randy. And you're talking about Randy Rose.
Right.
Well, Randy Rose was a kid that Jerry Stubbs, Mike Stalnaker, and Randy Rose. It wasn't Randy Rose. Randy, I forget his last name. I didn't like his last name, whatever it is. And we went to school together. And so Randy had trained and got into business. He wanted to come to work for me. I gave him the name Randy Rose. I said, I like that name a little better. And you'll come in, you carry a rose, and you give it to a beautiful girl at ringside. And, you're a sexy class act, which Randy's furthest thing from being a sexy guy. But I said, that's going to be the beauty of it. You got the rose. You're all full of this sexy stuff, but that ain't the way you are. And we kind of got Randy going, and then we had Dennis, and we had Norvell Austin with them also. Oh, Norvell Austin, he put on that red outfit with that red top like this coat I got on, and that red big hat with that big feather coming out of it, and they were a team that had a lot of character. I mean, we just wound up really needing a tag team. And so we took Dennis and we took Randy. Actually, we had a Dennis working with Phil Hickerson or something there, and then Phil was leaving and didn't want to work, and so we switched that deal around and switched Randy into that deal, and I wound up with a fabulous tag team. Mostly working for my brother. Once in a while, I'd take a break, and for 6 months or something, my brother would take over the book, and he's the one that really, I got that team together,
right.
And then my brother took it over, and he kind of formulated it to make it all gel. And then they wound up going into NWA up there in Atlanta and just tearing it up, man. So, yeah.
What about Johnny Valiant, Ron Bass, guys like Jimmy Golden?
Yeah. Well, Ron Bass, great guy. Big old guy, man. Ron Bass, if you look way back into the history of Ron Bass, the beauty of him, and I remember the original angles that took place down there in old Gulf Coast wrestling. They had Sam Bass and Ron Bass, and they had another guy, Bass. I can't remember his name, but they had the thing that really got them over. They had old Ma Bass, and old Ma, she was a tobacco chewing. Oh God! It was her boys saying, "Just my boys, I don't my boys. Don't you touch my boy, and I'll kill you. Don't ever get my." She was the best doggone thing that ever happened to the Gulf Coast Wrestling. They wound up with old Ma Bass, and I don't know why somebody don't do it today. Why somebody don't come up with a fine tag team of the boys from the Hills, and one of them's classy, and they're not like Hills boys, but here's old Ma, and dadgum, she's mean, tobacco-chewing old gal, and she says, listen now, you can wrestle, but you hurt my boy, and I'll literally tear you apart myself. One of them type of deals. Well, that got Ron going, and when we brought Ron in to work for us, people remembered that. They remembered all that legacy of Ma and Sam and the whole deal, and so Ron was a natural moneymaker for us the day that he walked into our territory to work for us. Yeah.
Memphis. Let's talk about Memphis. The first time you went in during the 70s. What are some of your memories of Jackie Fargo?
Oh, Jackie, my gosh, man. That's the most flamboyant son of a gun that ever lived. That when I was just a young boy, just, going to grammar school, still in grammar school, hottest tag team my daddy had was Donnie and Jackie Fargo. And they worked against the Fields boys, my dad's cousins, the old Fields boys, Bobby, Don, Lee, they're dad's cousins, so my second cousins. And those are some of the greatest workers that ever lived on this earth, man. And you put Jackie Fargo, what do they call themselves? Maybe you know.
Jackie and
Don Fargo. They call it something. I don't know. Anyway, those guys, man, talking. They were 20 years ahead of their time. Jackie Fargo was 20 years ahead of his time, and Dad was the luckiest guy in all of the world to have Jackie Fargo to work for him. And then later on, when I start working, now I'm talking about grammar school. I'm watching these guys on top, burning down the house. And then when I'm up in the early 70s and I start working and I go up to Tennessee to work, who's the hottest dadgum guy they got up there? Jackie Fargo. And Jackie just doing the same thing that he did when I was in grammar school as a kid. That flamboyant talking, the way that he sold himself. Hey, Polly, and beautiful, and boy, that strut that he did and the stuff that he did. And he was just instant money. I mean, anybody that had a chance to get Jackie Fargo to work, and you had to watch him. Boy, outside of the ring, he was a ribbon son of a gun, and just a ball of fire to be around. I mean, you're a young guy and you hang around Jackie Fargo, you're gonna grow up fast.
Do you think
really,
Jackie had
fast.
more talent than his brother?
Than Donnie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Donnie, the side that Donnie had that Jackie didn't have, and Jackie did too, because Jackie had been hard weighed and busted and, beat up in this business. He had given up, but Don was one of the toughest guys as far as being able to just brutally take a beating. I mean, he was unreal. That if you could tell Don that 4 days ahead of time that you were going to get blood in a match, I'll be doggone that son of a gun. He would slit his dadgum eye 2 inches across and then new skin it all up and then put makeup over it so you couldn't see it at all, and then you had to bust it. You had to hit that eye, because he'd say, nah, I ain't gonna use no dadgum, I ain't gonna do that, you want to get blood on me, boy, you're gonna have to hit me. Yeah. And then he'd tell you, and then, if you hit him or something and you didn't knock the living fire out of him, then Don would say, hey, boy, can you bust an egg? What the hell is wrong with you? You can't even bust a damn egg, can you? Who makes your eggs in the morning? Hey, come on, hit me. One of them type of guys. So you say, well, old Don, man, he's the guy for your dadgum anything goes match. Who gets the most blood match? Toughest match anybody ever had? There's old Don Fargo in it. So you put him and Jackie together and all that flamboyant strut Jackie Fargo, and there he is with his, come on, guy, you couldn't bust a man type of thing. And you got a great tag team there, man.
What about Terry Funk? Some of your early memories of Terry?
Oh, that's to take both those guys I just talked about, smack them right into one. Boy, there's old Terry. He's one thing I remember about Terry the most is working with him. Is getting in the ring with Terry. That he was the hardest guy
to work with, but not because he was brutal, or not because he was awkward, or not because he didn't know what he was doing. Just the other side of that. He knew all of that. He had it all. But Terry would take you to your limits. I mean, several times I thought I had a heart attack working in the ring with Terry. And a lot of times that I upchucked. I had to find me a place in upchuck because I couldn't, staying with Terry was a real hard thing to do. Everything that he did was absolutely perfect. The way that he sold it, the way that he done it, and that he made you do the same. And so anytime you go to the dance and you just dance around, you're okay. But when you start rock and rolling, then you're going to get winded a little bit. Well, working with Terry was total rock and roll. And he brought the best out of you. If you're selling something, you don't mediocrely sell it. You're working with Terry, you're going to sell that dang thing. You're going to put everything in your heart, everything in your body, everything that you got inside of you is going to come out for the camera. They're going to see it. And if you don't, Terry's going to see it, and he's going to bring it out of you. He's going to make you give him that. And then at the end of the match, working with Terry Funk, you're going to be able to sit back after you get your breath, and you got beat up, but you didn't get hurt. And you're going to say, you know something? I believe I had the best match I ever had in my life tonight. Dang, about killed me, but I had the best match I ever had. Terry could do that. Yeah.
Let's talk about Arn Anderson, young Arn Anderson coming through the Alabama territory. Did you see any potential in him? Did you think he was going to be a star?
Oh, good Lord, yeah. I gave him a name, Arn Anderson. His name was Marty Lundy.
Right.
He came to work for us, Marty Lundy, and used him, Marty Lundy, for a week. That was a mistake, but we overcame it. About a week, and I watched him work. He was from Rome, Georgia. So
right.
I watched him work, and I said, hey, this guy's got it. But that Marty Lundy, yeez, that ain't no good. So there's up there in Atlanta, then you got Ole and Gene, and Gene's still living. And so Ole and Gene, and they're over. And I look at Arn and I say, you look a little like one of them Anderson boys. And Arn says, you know what I kind of do? I said, yeah, you do. I said, let's call you Arn Anderson. Yeah, let's call you Arn. So we put the name on him and started a push, buddy. And even after people seeing him for first week as Marty Lundy, 2 months later, there ain't no Marty Lundy living on this earth. I mean, he is Arn Anderson, and everybody's going, oh boy, that one of them Anderson boys are crazy down there in Alabama. Well, that's the deal. We put the name on him. He lived it, man. And then Ole and Gene, craziest thing, boy, they accepted him.
Right.
Later they brought him up to Atlanta and they accepted him.
They Rick saw him work, and then Rick brought him up there. Was it?
What's that?
Was it that Flair saw him work down there, and then the Lake?
Yeah. Flair came down. They instant friends, just like that. But get in the car, ride to the show. Flair says, "Kid, I love you," and Arn says, "Ooh, boy, you like your daddy to me." There they go, man. Great buddies, great friends, forever and ever, forever and ever. Here they are today. Best friends that ever was in this business. Arn, nicest guy, quick. Just like that, just quick. Say something to him, get back, dandiest answer you're ever going to hear. You say, wow, where'd that come from, guy? It's just, and then he just snapped. It just got better and better and better and better until that interview, that character, that guy, Arn, you snap it out there, he's going to bite it off and hand you back a big fish on the end of the line, buddy.
What about Dickie Murdoch?
Who?
Memories of Dick Murdoch?
Oh, yes. A lot of memories of Dick Murdoch. Dick Murdoch cauliflowered my brother's ear. Orlando started to cauliflower. My dad set that up. He went to Dick. Dick is not the type of guy to say no to the promoter. Boss. Dad said, I'd like my boy to have a cauliflowered ear. Dick says, when you want to do it? Dad says, well, do it tonight. Let's get him going, man. him to have a bag ear there. You know, it runs in the family. Roy had 2 bag ears, and I got 2, and let's get the boy at least 1. So they go in there. No, Dick just whacks him in that ear 3 or 4 times, and rubs and wrangles and things, and come out of the ring. And old Ronald had a cauliflower ear. Dang, I was jealous. I was so jealous. I said, man, I wish Dick could do that to me. But I tried to get some big old ears or something about the cartilage in my ears. They would swell up, but they'd go back down. And that was the worst thing for me. I said, son of a gun, I just give me anything to have a doggone cauliflower ear. It runs in the family. My down ears won't cauliflower. Something's wrong with me. But Dick, man, that Texas rough, top dog boy. I mean, he was one of those 80s guys during that early 70s in that Florida, and all those guys that came through there just got that flamboyancy and all that stuff together that when you left Florida, boy, I come in there, you come in there and you work for Garibaldi and Louis Tilley and Eddie and Dad and these guys. And when you leave there, buddy, you're going to Texas or you're going to Louisiana or you're going up to Georgia or you're going to New York, wherever you're going twice the guy or 5 times the guy in some cases than what you came in. What they got hold of, and they're not sending out. They're sending out the hot dog now. And Dick was one of those guys.
What about Joe LeDuc?
Joe LeDuc, giving, sweet, great guy, one of my greatest friends in this business. That if you're booking in a territory and you have an opportunity to work with a guy like Joe LeDuc, then heaven has smiled on you. That Joe, if you could go to him with an angle and you could tell him something that you wanted to do, he was always saying, let me bleed. Let me do this. Let me give you more. Let me some way. I hear what you're saying. Really, really like it, but let me do more. You know, I gotta give more. I gotta give more. And at any time that you're booking, and heaven smiles down on you, and you get hold of a guy that listens to what you gotta say and just says, "Oh, that's wonderful," and I can add to it. Man, you are lucky. And Joe was one of those type of guys. You know, I talked to Joe. We had Mongolian Stomper in working for us in Southeastern Wrestling, and we with Gorgeous George Jr. and we broke a cinder block on his head.
Right.
What we did, we took the block in, we baked it in the oven from 350 degrees for, like baking a cake, and we take it out. We say, well, it's going to be brittle and it's going to break a little bit easier, and so we talked Archie, Stomper, into letting us break this block on his head. We baked it for 350. It's not going to really hurt me. He said, but you're going to hit me with a sledgehammer. We say, well, we're going to hit you with a sledgehammer, but it's going to hit the block, not your head. And then the block is baked, and it's all going to fit. So Archie says, well, okay, go ahead and do it. You better not hurt me. Okay, so we go. We break the block on his head. And he chases George around the building. I mean, he's going to kill him because it hurts. It really, really hurts. And he's looking at me and he's going, you and your dadgum, your stinking block. You're never going to break a damn block on my head ever again. I'm not stupid. You're not breaking blocks with sledgehammers on my head. Anyway, long story short, here comes Joe LeDuc. And I got him in an angle. So I say, Joe, we broke a block on Stomper's head. We'll break one on your head. And Joe says, that's good. But he says, not the regular block. I want the cinder block. I want the big one. Get the big one,
Right.
And he says, and don't bake it either. And I say, no, now wait. We're going to 350 the block for 30 minutes. We got our deal that we do. No, you don't have to bake it. Oh, yes, we're going to bake it. So anyway, the deal is, when we get ready to break the block on his head, that Stomper's going to run into the ring, knock the guy down with the sledgehammer, and bust Joe in the head with a dadgum sledgehammer. And he breaks the block, and then Joe gets hurt from it. And then we do a little
little time off. Joe makes the comeback. We got the big match with these two guys. So we set the deal. Here comes boy. Archie comes in. He hits Joe pow with the thing, and boy, and Joe's down, but he's not giving up. That's okay because we kind of talk about that a little bit. But I run into the ring. I'm a young baby face, and a couple of guys, and we're over there. Hey, Joe, how's the deal and all? He said, well, his eyes are open. He's okay and all, but he can't move. He can't get up. So I say, Joe, come on now. Camera's off. Commercial. Let's go. Get up. Can't get up. Can't do it. So take him to the hospital, and he's busted some vertebrae in his neck. So he was in the hospital, 3 weeks or a month. He was in the hospital for the longest doggone time. And he got out of the hospital. We're running on a Friday night. We don't talk to him. We don't tell him. We go down and visit him at the hospital, naturally, because we love him. But we're running a show on a Friday night. He gets up out of the bed at the hospital, gets his clothes, lumberjack things, and shows up at the show. Don't even tell us.
Morning to work?
He don't even tell us. He's not on the card. He's supposed to be in the hospital. And the hospital's going, oh, where'd this guy go? He's got vertebrae all gone in his neck. He shows up. Archie has his match, Stomper. He works his own angle right over top of me. I'm the booking the dadgum thing. Let me book. You don't do the damn booking. Anyway, but Joe, the end of the match, Stomper wins, bang, stomping around the ring. And in the back of that, or front of the building, coming down through the crowd, is Joe LeDuc, supposed to be in the hospital. He's got his axe over his shoulder, walking down through there, and that crowd, all of them just go, whoa, Joe LeDuc, he's supposed to be in the hospital. Me too. I'm the book in the territory, and I go, Joe, you're supposed to be in the hospital. Down, Archie looks at him, and Archie goes, God, you're supposed to be in the hospital. Everybody of the same theme. Archie blows the scene, and Joe rolls in the ring, takes that axe, get that microphone, and says, now, who's come home to Knoxville? That crowd, boom, Joe smack. Oh, gosh. I sat back there, and I go, well, I'm darn sure a genius, ain't I? I said, man, almighty hot dog, buddy, am I a hot dog booking son of a gun? You'll never find a better one in this business than me, buddy. Sell out.
Wow.
Boom. Sell out. Just boom. Right there. Joe LeDuc, there's the guy. Gonna give it to you when you don't even ask for it. He says, I'm gonna give you more. Made me famous as a booker, got me booking jobs any place I wanted to go, and got me offers from ones that I didn't want to go. And I was 28 years old. I was the fanciest dadgum writer in this business, sought after, and I really wasn't that hot. It was guys like Joe LeDuc who made that happen.
What about Tom Pritchard?
Same deal.
Same thing.
Same deal. Old Tommy come in. The first night he worked for me, he worked TV for us in Birmingham, Alabama. We were Continental Wrestling at that time. And first night I ever met Tommy. And I'd already decided, I rode up there with some guys. I forget what car I was in, but I said, I'm going to ride back with this new kid. So you get to know him. So I get there, and Tommy works the show for us. And I like this match, the way that he works, but he's a little, he's a little backward. He don't want to speak out. He's a little intimidated.
Right.
Is a good word for it. And so I say, hey kid, we're 250 miles home to Pensacola. I said, I'm gonna ride home with you. Oh, no. He said, my car, it's old, beat up, just big beat up car. You don't know about. I said, listen, kid, I want to ride home with you. Oh, I had 5 wrecks. I had five wrecks. I seem to wreck my car more than anybody else. I say, Tommy, do you mind if I ride home with you? No, I don't mind. You're not going to want to ride with me. I said, Tommy, could I ride home with you? If you insist, you ride home with me. We ride down, we get, some beers, and we start home.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to Tommy. Why do you have so many wrecks? He said, I never had a wreck, Tommy.
He said, never, ever had a wreck. Said, never had a wreck. Never dented the fender on the car. Drove well over 1 million miles. Never dented the fender on the car. What's your problem? And we talk about it. And I said, Tommy, you're not focusing. You don't have the thing. You got to focus. You got to this and that. Well, in your car here, it's not so bad. But if you get your act together, kid, put you in a Cadillac. Your life doesn't have to stay here. You don't have to keep wrecking cars. You're going to start thinking. You're going to start applying yourself to everything you do. And that we're going to make a man out of you, man. We're going to teach you how to do it right. And Tommy, then one of these kids that looks at that relationship that we're starting and says, you know something? I'm going to give you about 10 times more than you ever asked me for. And I see it right away. I say, this guy. And man, and he did. And he did. We brought his brother through. Bruce, his brother came through to visit. You never come through to visit me without you going to work.
Right.
I mean, if and he was just going, he hadn't worked. But he was going up to do that brother love or whatever for Vince. Part for Vince, and he comes through, and I say, "We're short a referee."
Right.
So I had him referee coming through the thing. So he always remembered that Tommy got a big kick out of that. Tommy said, "He don't referee." I said, "Well, he does tonight." I said, "No reason why he can't. He's in town. We need a referee." He said, "You don't need a referee." Yes, same deal like riding with Tommy, same thing. But that Tommy just a great guy. I wish him best wherever he's at today.
What about Austin Idol? What are your memories of Austin? Did you get along with him? Because a lot of people say he was hard to get along with.
Yes, he was. He worked for us an awful lot. Many, many years. Idol worked with us. And he was Dennis McCord. Hung out with me and Mike. He was a Florida weightlifting champion. Strongest guy I knew. Big, hairy son of a gun. Mike McCord, big iron Mike McCord type of deal, So here comes 3-4 years after I know him as Mike McCord and grew up with him and the whole thing, and bring him in as Austin Idol. And I'm thinking to myself, I'd never seen the gimmick. I don't know where he worked that gimmick before he did it with us. He came in and walked in my house, and I said, "Who's that?" I just looked at him and said, "Who's that, man?" He dyed his hair totally white blonde. He had lost the weight. He just took all that heavy fat, that Iron Mike McCord, that big gimmick was gone. Here's the most handsome guy. One of the most handsome guys I ever saw in my life. I looked at him, I said, Austin Idol? And that little bitty cat hat that he wore, and that personified way he carried himself. And I said, "Boy, there's some dollars behind you. This is unreal. This is unreal stuff." So I said, "Hold, let's just wait right here. Instead of just putting you on the card, let's get an angle for this deal, boy." And I shot this big angle in Dothan, the television in Dothan. I had him run in with a police car and the lights going on. I could go through the whole angle. It'd take too much time, but I introduced him as this Austin Idol. And man, he took hold of that ball, and man, I'll tell you what, he was money. What he was the Hogan before Hogan. What it amounts to.
Right. I mean, and he could talk on the mic too.
Oh man, what a talker. What a talker. That son of a gun. He was ball of fire. But he had some difficulties in doing business with him because he had a strong feeling in his mind that he's way up here and all the guys he worked with are way down here, and I can't get them to a middle. I can't find that thing in here where I want them to work for me. And he was a little difficult to get him down here sometimes so that I can get my other guy, and I want to make my territory work. I want to say, hey, Dennis, that great. You're great. You're selling tickets. But I don't run an Austin Idol show. I run a territory. And we've got to somehow find that medium there. That was the only problem with him.
You talked a little bit about when Flair came through Alabama. What are your memories of Flair?
The greatest. The greatest. I mean, gosh, dog, man. Anytime we had Rick, it was great. I'll tell you one memory about Rick. I worked with him. And when he came into territory, I had the book. And, I took care of myself in that medium area somewhere there. But all of my guys, I kind of like to keep working for the territory instead of working for themselves. And Flair came in, then I would book him with different guys in different towns around. So I'd have this one town, I've used up all my guys. So I'd say, well, you better work with him yourself there. Mobile, work with him in Mobile. And doggone it, boy, I knew that come Tuesday night in Mobile, you're going to have to get off the stump here, man. You have to get out there and work. And I remember working with Rick one night. And this is the kind of guy Rick is. We're going to go 40 minutes. So we're 20 minutes into the match, halfway into the match, and I'm gassed. I'm a lazy booker sitting back and eating too much and living the good life. And Rick's out running that road every night, working with different guys, an hour Broadways and what have you. He said, phenomenal shape, his timing, technique, perfect. And then here's old Rob here. He's got this big fat booking life going on for him. And so I'm not ready for that completely. And Rick got no understanding of that whatsoever. It's just the fact is, I came here to work with you. I'm doing all I can to get you over as a world's champion. I came here to get you over, Robert. And so he's pumping me, man, with spots, and we're racking and we're rolling and we're going, and boy, and he's getting that heat, and and I'm figuring, okay, we can get that heat, let's go ahead and go. Rick's saying no, because you're going to cut me off. We're going to go another direction here, and we're going to turn this thing back to you, and then 20 minutes from now, we're going to get that heat again, and then we're going to do that finish. And boy, and I say, Rick, gosh, I say, I'm going to vomit. And he says, okay. He says, all right, I'm going to shoot you in, drop down. You come off that rope. I'm just going to shovel you right out. He just right out through the ropes. And he said, just ease up under the ropes there, under the ring, and go ahead and have your good throw up. And he said, come on back and we'll finish. Oh, I just go, God, you got to be kidding. I'm dying. He says, oh, no, you'll be okay. You're not going to die. Do the spot. Oh, God, okay. Come back in, but do the thing. After the match, same thing I said about Terry Funk earlier. You sit back there and you get out of that rim where you're just, I can't raise up my arm. I'm totally done. Then you finally get up, you get down, buy you a 6-pack of beer. Those beers. You say, damn, I'm the best dang worker in this business. I mean, Rick's one of those guys. He could put you in that spot, man. He could do it with anybody.
What about
anybody?
Brutus Beefcake in the 80s? You teamed with him when he was pretty young in the business.
Beefcake, we started him along with Hogan down in Mobile.
Right.
Our deal down there that Hogan came in for us. He was Terry the Hawk Boulder. We called him Terry the Hawk Boulder. And he shaved everything but a big V in his chest right here. And he was real hairy. Hogan's got a lot of body hair. And he had a big V like Superman. He shaved in his chest, and that's the only hair that he had. Shaved everything else. And worked for us just a little bit. Instant success. Not that good a worker at that time, but tickets would sell when you put this guy on the main event. Just the way it was. We saw it, and we said, listen, we're going to get off of Dad's deal, all this being tough, hooking, who's the best man. Heck with that. We're trying to sell tickets. We want to make money here. Hogan was our man. And then he said, well, I got a brother down there living in Tampa, and he's not working. And he's green, but, we can use him. So we brought him in as Eddie Boulder. And then we teamed him up as Terry the Hawk and Eddie Boulder. And we get Eddie greener than Dadgum Gordon. He couldn't really have the match that we wanted, but we said, well, we'll work through that. We're working with real good guys, and we'll bring him up. We'll work him up. And we gave him the old airplane spin. You know, we didn't see anybody in the business at that time, no territory, nowhere, that was picking guys up and giving them the old airplane spin. So Eddie looked really good, really good. And him and Terry were just, boy, to walk out and have a look at those guys, just fabulous. And so Terry got that break up there in New York, went up, and then shortly here goes dadgum Eddie up. And then I'm watching the TV and I see Brutus the Barber Beefcakes with the black hair all shaved because he had blonde hair like Terry had, and all halfway down his back, blonde hair. Here's that short, dark-haired guy, Brutus the Barber Beefcakes. He's doing his little interview and stuff. And man, I'll tell you what, I couldn't anything but wish him well, because both of them, great guys. Both of them, great guys.
You were part of the big angle with DiBiase and the Freebirds. What are your memories of that?
I remember that being great matches, relatively hard time. Those boys, Buddy Roberts and Michael Hayes and Terry Gordy, and they were intent. I mean, they were just driven to get over, and money hungry like a son of a gun. And there's me and DiBiase and Barnett's pushing real hard for DiBiase to be world's champion. And they got it. They got their eye on that. A lot of guys got their eye on that. So I'm booking in Atlanta at the time, and I said, well, I know what they got in mind for DiBiase, but I said, you know, me and DiBiase, we got a lot of same things going on. And two young, good-looking guys, and I think we got a real good deal with this, maybe going with this Freebird deal. Maybe Ted, I don't know, Ted might have had a few problems with that because he liked the idea of maybe pursuing that world championship thing, but nonetheless, jumped whole hog into the deal. Ted, great guy. His dad, Mike DiBiase, worked for my father back in when I was a young boy, 10 years old, in Arizona. His dad was the main, Mike DiBiase was Dad's best guy. He was his main event. So I had remembered that, and I just looked at Ted, and I saw the same situation. You know, that I just had that feeling there or something, and I just really liked Ted. And so we tagged us up and worked with the Freebirds, and it was hard. I mean, it was one of those deals where you got beat up, but you didn't get hurt. It was hard because everybody was trying so hard to better themselves, and we were working really, really hard. And I mean, there was a lot of risky bumps, and you know, and again, a lot of blood, and everybody was giving it up. Ted was right there in the middle of things, and you know, and I really liked him. Really liked working with him as a tag team. I hope he did too, because I still have real good feelings about Ted today.
Now in the 80s, you went to Memphis, and you worked the Memphis territory. How different was Jerry Lawler from the earlier years? Now that he was on top of the company and booking and getting the big push.
When is that? When
in the 80s in Memphis?
When
you went down there?
You know what? It was a little bit easier because I never ever worked with Jerry at that particular time. We never had any matches because we both healed at that particular time.
I think you had a big feud with Jeff, right? Jeff Jarrett. Okay.
Yeah. I came in as a Tennessee stud.
Right.
You know, my brother always worked as carried that Tennessee stud label, and then Ron was going to retire, and he was going to go into the hockey business. He had another thing in mind. He was going to sell out of the wrestling, the whole deal. And so we did a match in Knoxville, Tennessee. I was turning heel, and I was going to wrestle Ron, my brother, to see who was going to remain as a Tennessee stud, and then the other one was going to get out of the business. One's career was over. The other one was going to be the Tennessee stud, because I was running around saying I was the Tennessee stud, and my brother saying, listen, my brother's all right, but he's got a big mouth, and he's really being it. It was a great angle,
right.
And we got the very most out of it. But when I went then from there to Tennessee, I took that Tennessee stud, and when I showed up in Memphis, Everybody thought I was a big baby face. It was all so glad to see me. And the first night is a big tournament. And the winner's going to win $10,000, whatever the deal is. A great big tournament. And so the last ones in the tournament are me and Jeff Jarrett. And no, it wasn't me. It may have been me and Lawler that wound up in the last match.
Right.
I think it was me and Lawler. And I got it won. And then Jeff comes in, smacks me in the head with a garbage can. They wound up beating me. The reason for that was that Jeff was about 185 pounds, maybe soaking wet. And he was a good-looking young boy, but he was Jerry Jarrett's son. And a lot of guys had a chip on their shoulder about Jeff getting a push, being as small as he was. And so Jerry was kind of a state of mind. He said, is there anybody that can heal and work this business, that knows what they're doing, that can help my kid get over? I mean, it's the most important thing in his life. And so when I came in, they shot me in that spot, and I looked at that kid, and I said, I like that boy. I really like him. I said, I didn't realize he's a little small, but I said, I'm not going to work that way. I'm going to talk that way. I'm going to overpower everything that I get involved with where he's concerned, but I'm going to give this kid his devil due in the end. And I'm going to figure out a way. I've been booking long enough and working this business long enough to know that there's thousands of ways to make this David and Goliath story come across. And every match, Roadrunner and Coyote, David and Goliath, I'm going down. And I'll tell you what, I said, I'm going down and put this kid over, and I'm going to grow in my statute every night that I do it. And guys that sat around the dressing room and they said, I ain't going to put that kid over. I ain't going to put that kid over. They all looked at me working with Jarrett and they went, that's working. Why? I wouldn't have put that kid over. And if I would have, I'd have died doing it. I wouldn't be anything tomorrow. And here's Robert Fuller, Tennessee stud, come in and put the kid over, and he's hotter now than he was before he did it. What in the hell happened there? That we were able to do that, and we did it, and we did it. Me and Jeff Jarrett played the Roadrunner Coyote story for the people for a year and a half, straight through. And I mean, and did big business. Jeff gained some weight, built his confidence, learned to speak, because the same thing happened to him that happened to me with Jerry Lawler. There's so many weaknesses in this kid. When I make my interview, I'm talking about a next thing to a mama's baby, daddy's puppy, worthless. He's got no business being in the ring with me, and he's definitely going to get hurt. One of those type of deals. If your dad, Jerry Jarrett, gosh, I know you love the kid. What in the hell are you doing putting him in the ring with me? I'm going to kill him. I mean, what the heck is the deal? Look, we're doing that deal. He's looking at it and he's going, damn, Rob, you make me mad when you make those interviews. And I say, give it to me. Now the deal is I talk before you. Now, son, I'm giving you the opportunity. Well, how do I do it? She said, did you hear what I said about you? Yeah. Well, tell me what I said. Well, you said that I was this. I said, all right, bring it back to me the same way. I said, if I said you should be washing windows at a car wash, you should be what? I said, go out there and tell those people. I worked at a service station and I washed those windows. Put yourself on their level and tell them I was the best damn window washer that ever worked at that station. And that's where you mess up, Tennessee stud. So Jared goes, you give me cold chills. I said, kid, do it. Go out and do it. And there we got it. Jarrett's looking at me and he's going, Robert, I love you. Say, well, you know what? Now then, Daddy, let's go.
I got to switch tapes.
Okay.
You bring that in?
That was Jerry Jarrett.
Okay.
Jerry Jarrett saw her go into a concession stand in Memphis. Came out of the dressing room. She was back there with me. I didn't take her to the wrestling very much, but I had taken her
that night, and she had a mini skirt and stuff on, looking real cute and too much makeup. And went to the concession stand, and Jerry caught Jerry's eye, and he came back in, and him and Lawler, and said,
Hope you don't mind my just squeezing under here.
and said, is that mine? And said, is that your wife? And I said, yeah. I said, that's my wife. And Jerry said, well, why is she working? And I
You don't
said,
have to worry about me because he's the one you got to think about it.
I said, she's not working. The reason she's not working is that we got 3 kids back at home, and she's a mama, and I don't take her around this business, and I'd just soon not take her around this business because that, that's going to cause problems in our life and marriage and the kids and the whole 9 yards. And Jerry said, well, I'll tell you what, she's a spectacular looking girl. We could sure use one right now. And maybe you could use a little extra money, and, naturally we're going to pay her. So he talked me into it. So I took her over to his office, and we sat down and talked about the whole thing. And she's just kind of like, what am I going to do? And I say, well, you're going to do what you're told. And we go in and we start working together. And I'll tell you what, 2 months into it, I'm the Tennessee stud. She's my right-hand man. That she's got it all. I say this, she comes up. I do that, she draws the ref. I do this, she's there. On the finish, some little type of beauty queen type of thing, get the attention, I take advantage of it. We did everything you can do with a girl, with a pretty girl, and get these matches over. And after, I guess, a year of working with her, I kind of figured, how in the world did I ever be able to work, and be the Tennessee stud without her being there? Because it worked out really, really well.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to. How'd you get the nickname Tennessee Stud? We've heard a lot of different things. Sherry Martel, I think.
The Tennessee stud? No, that started from Ron. Ron came up with that years before, and like I said, I had wound up wrestling for it in Knoxville, Tennessee, and he retired, went to doing the hockey business, and I wound up being the Tennessee stud. And that was a great thing, in Tennessee. And I'll tell you what, I'd go to Texas, I'd work with the Von Erichs out in Texas and carrying them, and man, they loved it. They loved it because I would tell, man, I'd get out there and I'd say, listen, guys, I am really pissed off. I got off that, I come across them mountains from Tennessee to this stinking hot, godforsaken hole in the ground, Texas, and I get off that airplane and I can hardly breathe from the dadgum stinking hot air and this smelly bunch of Mexicans, worthless, no good stinking Texas hole in the ground that killed dadgum Davy Crockett. You wouldn't have lasted 2 seconds in the Alamo. Davy Crockett wasn't there, and the volunteers, you boys would be in the ground in 2 seconds. Boy, I mean to just jump on them. God, dog, boy, the studs come to Texas and you're gonna know it, man. And then people said, hot dog, I hate that son of a gun. The Von Erich said, you're going to get cut. I said, well, shit, I've been cut before. So, what the heck, cut myself. Who in the hell gives a damn, and we went out and worked the deal. But I'd get to that show, sometimes have a couple of beers before I got there, get me some of that Hawkins snuff out there and put it in my lip. I don't do that. But I've done it because it made me feel a little crazy. And I'm hitting that cup and then thing, and I've become the Tennessee stud. I mean, in my mind, and I got time to build up, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do in this match. I'm thinking about being a bad, no good, irritating, mean, no good SB. And I'm sitting there and I got that, and I'm thinking, boy, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And they say, play his music. Well, dang, boy. And I said, there's a pride in that. I said, I'm in Texas, and I'm the Tennessee stud. Boy, I got up my heart race. Whew, cold chills down the arms. Heart racing like a son of a gun. And I say, let's get it on. I mean, I'll tell you what, there ain't nothing like it. And to go out there and just cold beat the living hell out of one another, me and Kerry Von Erich, and just downright hurt one another and love it. Every single minute of it, because I had the guns, man. I was ready. I said, I honestly believed
there ain't a man walking the face of this earth like me. I took it out of the ring. It's showbiz, brother, but I'll tell you what, it can be real in the way you feel.
What were the Von Erichs like outside the ring? You hear all the horror stories with the drugs and all that stuff. Did you see anything?
You know, great, but man, I got, everybody's got their stories about
Right.
all that stuff. But I got Kerry. He's the greatest guy in all the world. But he come in that dressing room, man. He raced over to the other side to see me and really liked me, and I really like him too. And he'd say, "How's your wife?" I'd say, "Doing good." "How's those kids?" I'd say, "Man, they're doing good." He'd say, "God dog, that's good. That's what it's all about, ain't it, Rob?" I'd say, "Yeah, it's all about that, ain't it?" Yeah. And then he'd go out talking with somebody else or something about 10 minutes or so. There's Kerry. And, "Hey, Rob! God, man! How's your wife?" I said, Good. "How's those kids doing?" I said, "Doing real good." "That's what it's all about, ain't it, Rob?" "Yep, that's what it's all about." Yep. He'd go out again. And I might, on occasion now and again, get a third round. "Hey, Rob! God, no, how's the kid?" And I'd say, "Hello." I'd say, "Okay. We're going to get it on tonight, ain't we, Gary?" We're going to get it on.
That's awesome.
I mean, he's just such a heck of a guy. But I'd tell him sometime, I'd say, "Boy, we'd be out in Texas, out in Abilene or Cleveland. There's a little small show or something, and Kerry'd be in there. And I'd say, 'Now listen, Kerry,' I'd say, they don't know me a lot out here. And you know the way I sell myself on TV. So I said, I really need to beat the living hell out of you right off the bat here for a little while. I'm going to do this to you." And I said, "I'd like to take you outside that ring, and I want to stir up some chairs." And I said, "If they got a little concession stand over there, I want to kind of mess up popcorn stand a little bit with us there. It's the last match. They ain't going to sell no more popcorn anyway and all." And Kerry says, very, very concerned. I don't know. I said, "Kerry, come on now." He said, "Well, listen, I'm going to do it all to you." I said, "That's the point. That's the point." I said, "Don't forget a thing of it. Not a thing. Everything that I do, leave the popcorn stand slightly standing so that I can take it out." "Oh," he said, "that's the deal. That's what we're going to do now. I'm going to tear your ass up, and then you're going to tear mine up." And he'd say, "Well, all right." And then had a hard time sometime getting it right where I wanted it, because he'd say, "Enough."
Right.
I'd want to say, "No, it's not enough now. It's not enough. Let's go a little bit more." But Kerry, great guy, but had a few little problems down there to work with. And, God bless him.
You got to work with a lot of young guys like Mick Foley and Undertaker when they first came in the business. What are your memories of those guys?
Oh, gosh. Well, Foley. What stories? My dad would have adopted Foley. He would have adopted him. He would have fell in love with him. He would have said, "Gosh, me and Mick, we did spots. It was just Cactus Jack, and he was in my stable, and we did spots and he'd set it up. He told me he wanted to do it because I would say, 'You can't do that, Jack.' And he'd say, 'Please do it for me.' So we'd do spots where he'd hold the guy. I'd go back and hit the ropes and come off with a big high boot, kick him right in the face. And he'd tell me, 'Please don't pull that foot. Please kick me hard as you can.' I said. And I always said, I'm my daddy's boy. And I always say, 'Yeah, sure. I'll hit you hard as I can.' 'Oh, please do.' 'Okay, let's do it that way.' He'd fly off that mat backwards on concrete floors, no matter where we're at, concrete, hardwood floors, anything. And I'd hear his body go, "Oh," when he hit the ground. Gosh, I just kicked him in the face. He's out on the floor. If there's blood every dadgum place. I mean, he was just, hard way. Oh, gosh, live for it. Jack, just live for it, man. I got to tell you one story real quick about that we're in Louisville, Kentucky, and all the Japanese people are there scouting for doing Japanese show. And Jack is young, and he's driving an old beat-up car. He ain't got a lot of money. I gave him a coat in the winter so he ain't cold. He's coming up in the business, but he's trying, and he wants to get a shot in Japan. So me and Jimmy Golden are working with him and somebody in a tag team match. And on the end, I'm going to take Jack and get Sylvia's kendo stick. And I told Jimmy, shoot him in the ropes, and when he comes off, I'm going to smack him in the back of the head with that kendo stick, and he's going to fly over the top rope and tie his head in the ropes. He could do that, just over the top, tie the head in the ropes. And got all that dadgum blood coming and everything, and he tells me, he comes to me and he says, Rob, he says, listen, you got to do me a favor. He says, these Japanese guys are here, and I want them to know I can take a beating. I'm good for Japanese wrestling. So he says, when you get that stick, he said, don't have any mercy on me. And I said, no mercy? And he says, please do me a favor. Don't have any mercy. When I tie my head in those ropes, give me everything you got. And I say, okay, that's what you want. That's what you're going to get. So we go out there. Sure enough, over the rope, tie yourself up. I get that kendo stick, and I start just like this. Right here. Boom! First one. Wham! Top, back. Boom! Right back to the front. Wow! Hard as I can. Bow! With a stick. Well, the ropes that night were so tight, when he tied his head in there, he kind of choked. He's choking himself, and he kind of cutting off his circulation in his head. And I am burning him up, man, with that stick. And he panics. I mean, he just, Jack just loses it because he's dying. His head, he's choking in the ropes. And he starts trying to get out of those ropes, rips that ear half off, right there. They come back in the dressing room, give him the ear after the thing. And he come in, ear half ripped off, bloody as hell. I mean, I give him, there's no street fight I ever had where I hit a guy harder than I hit him. And he's running across that dressing room to say, I love you. To say, thank you. God, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm going, God, my dad love you. I mean, you got to be one of my brothers or something. I can't believe this guy. And as far as Undertaker, I don't have a great story like that about him because I never worked with him. But when I worked with him before he became the Undertaker, he was in there for Jarrett, and he was struggling. He was trying to come up, like a lot of guys that were working for Jarrett right then. Nice guy, good guy, always friendly, always nice, and a great worker. Today, goodness, best in the house, man. Yeah.
There's a lot of guys I want to talk about, but because of time restraints, like Gary Young and other guys, I just want to skip ahead so we don't run out of time.
Sure.
Let's talk about Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Smoky Mountain, at the time that Smoky Mountain Wrestling was going on, I had took a job with my brother up in Cincinnati, and I was a marketing salesman in a hockey team, and I lived in Knoxville, and I only worked in Cincinnati 3 days a week. Jim Cornette, running Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and he asked Jimmy and myself to work for him in Smoky Mountain. And on those days that I wasn't up, because I didn't generally work weekends unless we had a hockey game. And so I worked for those guys. Had a great time doing it. It was a chance to kind of work the business after I had decided maybe I'm not going to work the business anymore. And that's an interesting story too. Around that same time that I'm kind of trying to give up the business, thinking that maybe I'm getting a little old for this. I'm going to be a marketing salesman in hockey and all of this. And then Jim Cornette pulls me back out of the box, keeps me working, keeps me in the name. People hear I'm still around, still going. And that's when I got my break with WCW as Colonel Parker. Right from that spot right there.
Did you like Smokey and Cornette? Did you like working with them?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I'll tell you what, Jim Cornette is one of them guys. It's like sitting with Robin Williams. I mean, same exact type of guy. You can't say a line without him giving you three that's going to crack you up.
Right.
He's just perfect for that. So working for him is just like that. I mean, you talk about low key and yet getting the job done, but low key. Everybody happy, everybody laughing, everybody enjoying their job. That Smoky Mountain Wrestling was like that.
You got to work with Rock and Roll Express when they were there.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Great guys, good matches.
Before you asked about the tag team with Jackie Fargo, it was the Fabulous Ones. I couldn't think of it until now.
That's it.
Yep.
Fabulous Ones.
Okay.
Yep.
I redeemed myself. Before we get into WCW and the whole Robert Parker character, Missy Hyatt says in her book that you were called the Tennessee Stud because you have a large, rather I guess.
Oh, I don't know how she'd know. I certainly never had any sexual situations with Missy Hyatt, but I guess when you're hanging around the dressing rooms, whether you're girls or guys or whatever the deal is, I don't know anything about Missy Hyatt, but Missy Hyatt had said that 3 or 4 times. I heard about that, and I always said, you know what, that's very nice of Missy. She don't really have a reason to be saying that I know of, but I said, every man, especially the Tennessee stud, you need that kind of stuff. And I should have given Missy a pat on the back for that, or on her butt or something.
Let's talk about WCW and Eric Bischoff. What are your thoughts on Eric, and how did you wind up in WCW?
All right. When I went to WCW, Eric wasn't there yet. What happened, I was working for the hockey team, working for Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Just a few shows for Smoky Mountain. Smoky Mountain didn't look like maybe it was going to go for a long time there. And so I was thinking, well, I'm going to have to bear down on marketing, sales, and become a marketing. Not easy for me because it was a different life, but still in sports, still in hockey. And I'm kind of down on it. Not to be honest with you, I'm a fairly religious man, and I had a lot of prayers about what am I going to do? I talked to the good Lord about it, and I said, what am I going to do? I don't know what I'm going to do, to be happy in this life and all. And one day I get a phone call from an old boy that I started in the business, Sid Vicious. And Sid says, hey, man, I owe you one, and I'm going up to Georgia, and I'd like to take you with me as a colonel. And I say, a colonel, all right. So I say, and he says, well, white hat, and you get your white suit, and that old colonel type of thing that you see. And so I said, well, I had the idea in my mind. I said, well, I'm going to do that. That's beautiful. I'll go to WCW. I got a new life in this. And I went in there, man, and I put the white suit and the stuff on, and I was still the Tennessee stud. And Sid said, now here's old Sid. Now start him in the business. And now he's schooling me. He's saying, hey, Rob, that's not going to smoke. That's not smoking. That's not going to work. That's not it. And I said, what's wrong? And he says, that's Tennessee stud and the Colonel Parker suit. He said, I got to have foghorn leghorn. I said, come on, boy. You square as a bowling ball. Get off your buddy and do something for me. I said, I got to have a colonel. You got to give it to me. And I say, well, I'll be darned. You're right. Yeah. So I start bringing out that side. I go down, I buy me some Mark Twain books. I get this Mark Twain book. It's got quotes that Mark Twain said. And I'll be darned, you can't hardly read the quotes without the colonel coming out. And I just started studying that and looking into that. And then it started to work. The Colonel Parker. And it was a lot more than I had ever, colonel than I thought I would ever be. And they even came to me as soon as I went into WCW. They had this beach blast that they were working on as soon as I went in, and it was going to be Sting and Davey Boy against Vader and Sid. Harley's managing them, and I'm managing my guys over here, and they want to make this big movie. Well, my gosh, I'm a wrestler and I talk and I've done interviews and all, but I've never done no dadgum movie. And as a matter of fact, I don't see from the way I'm brought up how a movie is going to help them draw money in a wrestling match. I'm not seeing it all. But they say, hey, we're going to make this movie and boy, you're going to have more fun than you've ever had in your life in this business. And I go, well, I've never made a movie, so, we'll give that a try. And so they come to me 2 days before we do this, and they hand me a script about that thick. And this script, and I never acted in a movie, and I'm reading that script, and I'm going, good gosh almighty, what in the world? I can't do that. So they say, no, you're going to do it one line at a time, like they do movies. And buddy, we went down to Tampa, Fort DeSoto, and we did the beach part of it, and then we went to a warehouse over in Tampa, and they had 100 guys over there in a big Dixieland band and the whole thing, and one day we started 7 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock the next morning. And I'm telling you what, when they got done with that and I'm starting home, I couldn't pick up I was so drained. It's the most drained thing I ever did in my life. To be Colonel, to be this character that they wanted and make this, say all these lines and do this, it's the most exhausting thing that I have to look, I have to look at actors today. And I look at guys in movies and I go, listen, I used to have an idea about what it took to make a movie, but Lord, do those people work hard. I mean, man, it was tough. So, and me and Sid, working with Sid kind of hard too, because Sid had an idea. He said, boy, I'm walking through a path and I'm leaving skulls and bones behind me and I'm going to the water hole where all the animals come down and I'm ripping out throats and I'm leaving dead carcasses all around me and all of this stuff. And then they're coming to me, you know, I'm going to close off and I'm saying, Colonel, and Sid's going, cut, 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 cut. He said, you're not raining on my parade there, Colonel. He said, now, doggone it now. He said, now, you know, I got this image going here, and you're not going to get it. I don't want it funny. I don't want a cartoon. I'm not a cartoon. I'm a funny son of a gun. I said, well, been around the business long enough, son. Let me talk first. Let me only introduce you in a very serious manner. No funny business. No nothing. I had a picture of the way that I could be Colonel, and that didn't work with what Sid was thinking. So for a while there, it pulled me down a little bit on giving what I wanted to give in the Colonel, until later on, Sid and Arn had a little confrontation, wound up Sid fired, and then I wound up with Steve Austin. And then the Colonel came out, and I had an opportunity then to do the interview. And there's Steve Austin, a stunning Steve, who is a happy-go-lucky type of good-looking guy. And there's the Colonel next to him, and he's got that flamboyant, and introduce you to the #1 star in all the world. Yeah. See, it worked out. And so Colonel started to flow, and I worked. Bless Sid's heart, I love him very much, but I worked much better with Steve Austin, and he and I got a lot better. And then later on into the Sherry thing and so forth. And boy, that just really brought Colonel to life. I was able to bloom, and then it became make your movie.
All right.
Yeah, make your movie. I said, heck, I'm ready for it now, man. Colonel Parker's the greatest thing ever happened to me, and I got him. I am him. He lives inside of me. I was able to give it.
Did you think that Steve Austin was going to be a huge success? Did you see it in him?
Yes, but not like it happened.
Right.
Not like it happened. Steve and I were together, and I wanted to work with him longer. He had a longer contract with WCW, and he fouled on his contract to go to work for Vince because he thought that he could do better. He thought it wasn't really a matter of money any more than it was the fact that he thought he would get a much better push working up there for WWF than he was going to get for WCW. And I, as an old timer and being my dad's son, frowned on that and let him know that when you sign a contract to do something for a period of time, then you're obligated to do that, and you don't foul on anything. You don't back up on anything. If you want to go work for WWF, do another year and a half and finish out your contract, which leaves you the option to be able to come back. So I'm offering this younger fellow, Steve Austin, all of this Colonel advice. I'm giving him, I'm going to make you. Today, when I see Steve, we have the best old time, because he'll say, it's the old Colonel there, boy. I'm dang Colonel, handle your dadgum affairs. Well, he's jumping on me because of this advice that I gave him that was BS. That he made so much dadgum money that it's unreal. He made the right decision to go ahead and go up there. When I saw him, head shaved, stone cold, walking through the fire, breaking the glass, all the stuff, I went, dude, I missed the boat. I said, so when I see Steve, I have to go, hey, your old dadgum, your manager's in the house. And he goes, you're a ball of fire, Colonel. I said, yeah. I said, doggone it. I might have given you a little bad advice, son, but thank God you didn't take it.
What about Sting? What are your memories about Sting?
Oh, great guy. Good card player.
Right.
Oh, me and Sting, it's just, that was my deal. Colonel, just like in the Maverick movie. Got the gear thing, got the hat, and I'll tell you what, you want to play gin, bring your wallet, come on. And then I'm going to empty it for you. And see, that was my legacy in WCW. Guys will tell you. They'll say, listen, Colonel emptied my wallet. And another guy over here say, Colonel emptied my wallet. Sting emptied my wallet.
Huh.
Sometimes. So yeah, we played games together and enjoyed. I really liked him. A decent guy. Sometimes it takes a long time in this business to find a really decent, God-fearing man, raising his kids, loving his wife. Sting. Wow. That's all I can say about him, man. He's a good guy.
Were you there for the Vader Orndorff fight?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. What are your memories of that?
I was in the dressing room for that. I was sitting right there. Me and Ming,
Right.
Ming at that time. And Orndorff had just gotten the job in WCW. And he was very proud of that job. And they had, I guess Rick had the book then. And that they had hired Orndorff as a serious agent. He was supposed to clean up some of this, not coming in on time and not doing this right, or just listen to things when you're told it instead of just going out and doing your own thing and disregarding what somebody told you. You got guys just going their own way, showing up 3 hours late, all this stuff. And here's Vader, and he's a fine guy. Vader's a fine guy, but he's got some problems along with being a fine guy, that he's a tough guy in his mind, and it's part of who he is. Anyway, he in WCW at that particular time comes in when he wants to come in. And if it's 2 hours late, then you just deal with that. But things had changed in Atlanta. New agents, a new deal. And so they said, put Orndorff on Vader. And so Vader comes in the dressing room and they're all like, hey guys, dog put down the book. He's, we're all dressed, interview and everything. Where's Vader? No Vader. All of a sudden there he is. He ain't even getting dressed. He just sits down. They need him for interviews.
Right.
And he's just sitting down there and he's telling stories and laughing, and we're all talking back and forth. And here comes Orndorff in, and Orndorff says, hey, what are you doing here friggin' 2 hours late? What the hell's wrong with you? He said, and he told him, he said, you big fat SB, he said, you get your fat ass up and you put those clothes on and get your ass out there for those interviews and do it now. And he walks out. And Vader turns all red in the face and he goes, whew, no. Nobody talks to me like that, boy. He said, who does he think he is? Nobody talks to me like that. Then he goes back telling the story. Ah, yeah, you guys was over there. Well, we went to the thing down the road here. And about 5 minutes later, here comes Orndorff back in again. And he says, you big fat SB no good butt boy. And he cusses him. And Vader says, don't talk to me like that. And he says, you get your fat ass up and you get your shit on now and you get out of there, you bastard. You're going to be god dog boy. And I'm sitting watching that and I'm going, whoa, that is some serious stuff, man. And I thought, Paul, I ain't so sure you ought to be maybe talking Vader quite so mean, like that. And what I was thinking, but Vader gets up, Paul walks out around the edge. He's supposed to get dressed. Vader just gets up and walks right around and follows him. Goes into the other room,
right.
Side room. I don't follow in there. I just sit where I'm at. But I hear the boom, bang, and a big ruckus. So everybody gets up, naturally runs around there. When we get there, Vader's flat. And he's just kind of... And Vader, Jimmy, my cousin, Bunkhouse Buck, Vader don't have a lot of respect for Buck. He kind of likes me. So he talks to me and he's kind of nice to me, but he's not nice to Jimmy at all, my cousin. And so a lot of guys around the dressing room, he don't pay him any attention, not nice to him. I'll get back to that. Vader's there, he's kicking in the floor there, and he's knocked out. He's just like that.
And I say, what in God's world did that to him? Orndorff. Boom, boom, boom. Whoa. 330 pounds of shit right there in the floor. Oh, gosh almighty. Oh, buddy. To be so, and I look up at Paul Orndorff and all the guys in the dressing room. Here's this new agent, Paul Orndorff. And everybody looks at him and goes, whatever Paul says goes. First time, don't tell me twice. One of them type of deals. I was there for that deal, but the funny part about that is they got a pay-per-view, our Monday night taping that we're doing up in Minneapolis, or the Mall of America or something like that. And me and Jimmy were up there in the afternoon, and it's about 1 o'clock. We go to 7-Eleven, and it's a Sunday. And next day we got the wrestling, and we're going to buy a beer, but you can't buy beer at 1 o'clock. So we're there in front of the 7-Eleven, and we're waiting on the beer to be sold, you know.
Right.
And here comes Vader driving by in the car, and he slams on his brake, backs up. He sees us standing in front of the 7-Eleven, and he drives in, and he big old busted up black face all swelled up like a basketball, and he goes, "Hey, Buck!" I mean, he's a different man. God has come and touched his heart. "Hey, Buck, how you doing there, boy?" He said, "Hey, Colonel, dog, what are you boys doing waiting on some beer?" Oh, gosh. And I look over Jimmy, and he looks at me, and I say, "Attitude adjustment."
Yep.
Boy, he got one.
That's
and old
great.
Paul, God dang, as an agent, one of the better one in the business.
We got about 20 minutes left, so I want to talk about Lex Luger. Your thoughts on Lex?
Yeah, Lex, great guy. Let me work out at his gym over there, main event for free. He's, him and Sting owned the gym together, and
Right.
I was real bad about it. I really liked Sting, and I liked Sting's growth as a wrestler. That, man, he was having some good wrestling matches. You know, just aside from the business, that rascal, it was like he had training that my father gave him or something. He was really getting somewhere in his wrestling ability. And I saw it so clearly and really liked him and liked Lex too. But I'd have that deal of going in the gym, boy, and I'd run to Sting and I'd say, "Boy, God dog, your match last night, oh son," and Lex would say, "Hey, how was my match, Colonel?" And I'd say, "Did you work?" You know what I'm saying? He's like, "Yeah, I worked. I was there." I said, "Oh, I must have been getting coffee or something." I didn't see the match. Oh, Lex, I thought Lex got, bless his heart, a little more than I think he deserved.
All right. What about Sherry Martel? What are your memories of working with her and Medusa, the feud?
Ooh. Oh, that old Sherry. Gosh dog almighty, she was a handful. Things that we did, we did the marriage, me and Sherry, we did that whole routine of the marriage. What a class act. That wound up being, we got there to that wedding, and old Sherry fashion, and bless her heart, she's gone now. I love her like a sister, but she showed up just drunker than hell. You know, just really slurred and banging. "Hey, Carl." So the guys there, all the production guys, and everybody standing around, they're going, "We can't shoot this. We're going to have to get another date. We can't shoot this." And we're all set up there at the same place that Elvis got married and Michael Jordan, Little White Chapel there, and we're going to have our wedding out in the parking lot. And Sherry's just bombed. She's just out of her mind. So they're going to call it off. They're going to say, "We got to get another date. We got to do the deal." And I say, "Listen, boys, listen here." I said, "Let the little lady sit over there and let me do the talking. And just let her go." I said, "She sounds beautiful." To go, I said, that's all she says. That's all. Just give her that deal, I said,
Right.
Doesn't matter that she's drunk. I said, it might be better.
Yeah.
Because you're getting to Sherry. She's come in half friggin' lit for her wedding.
That's great.
Give it a thought, guys. And they went, maybe we can shoot. I said, heck yeah, you can shoot, man.
Right.
We're going to do this. So we did that deal. And thank goodness the problems with production and this and that, instead of it taking a couple hours for us to shoot the piece, it took us like 6 hours. So by the time we got down to Medusa and her having a fight, she had sobered up enough to be able to have a heck of a fight. And Sherry was a handful about that bless her heart, she just had a little problems with that. But as a performer, getting the job done, and a tough girl, whoa, weren't no tougher in the business.
You also got to work Harlem Heat?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, work with those. Well, Sid brought them in. When I came in with Sid as Colonel Parker, and they came in with Sid as Sid's boys, Sid's guys.
Right.
They were going to be Sid's guys. And Sid ruled their life. I mean, he told them about their match. Sid was like the booker of me and of them. And that he was very critical in everything of them. And they listened, and they, great guys. Great guys. Still love them today, man.
What are your memories of the chicken suit match of Pillman?
Brian, I'm going to tell you one story here, and it's a good one. When we went out for several weeks before I broke up the team, the Hollywood Blondes, Steve and Brian. I would go out after every match, and I would push Brian out of the way, go straight to Steve and say, "Whoa, boy, you light up this house tonight, don't you?" And I'd start my stuff with him, and Brian would be punching me in the back going, "How about me?" And I'd just, "Get back, son, get back. I'm talking to Steve here," and I'm courting Steve. I'm paying no attention to Brian. And we're building up to this deal where it's all going to come to a head. Columbus, Georgia on the TV, and we go down there. And so I tell Brian, I got to skip. I said, "Here's what I'm going to do." I said, "I'm going to bash you in, same old deal, shove you out of the way. Hey, Colonel, how about me? Back, boy, I'm talking to the man here. Do my deal, and I'm going to lay down this story that Steve, I need to buy you. I need to have you. I want you in my stable. I want all this stuff." Brian said, "Me? How about me? How about me?" And finally, first time I ever speak to Brian, I say, "All right, boy, how about you?" I say, "Now it's time you and me have a talk." And I have to talk to Brian about this skit that I'm going to give him, this thing I'm going to give him. And I have to tell him that, "Brian, now, you can't hit me until I give you a line." And Brian's the type of guy, I'm going to say 3 lines to him, he's going to hit me because they're angry toward him and they're going to belittle him. He's not going to let this go down. And so, because he's a serious guy, he's very serious. So I say, I'd learned it from the chicken match. I had learned it from all this stuff. I had learned the way Brian was. And a tough guy knocked the living hell out of me, man. I mean, the chicken match was hard.
Right.
I went back in the back. Eric Bischoff came around in the back, and I'm bleeding down my arms and chest from him chops. Blood's running out of my body, and I'm winded because I'm gassed. I'm an old fart out there and trying to wrestle in the ring, and he's worried that I'm in trouble. I said, "No, I'm not. I'm just beat up a little, but I ain't hurting." One of them type of deals. But anyway, I'm gonna turn around to Brian and I say, "Brian, but finally, I'm gonna tell you about you." I say, "Now, you go down to the races, son." And I said, you got your slow running horse comes in last, and you got your $1 million racehorse Secretariat and just wins all the races. I said, "He just, every time you run him, he's a winner." And I said, now you need to understand that Steve is that Secretariat over here. And I said, you take a quality guy like him, a Secretariat, and you put him out there in the field, and I said, and holes out there in the field, and I said, he's a quality guy. He'll step in them holes, he'll break his leg if he's not careful, and you got to be careful with a guy like him. But I said, in your case, I said, how you want to step in one of them holes, I said, and break your leg, I said, then, I said, people take an animal like that out and shoot him. But I said, I don't believe I'd waste a bullet on you. I'd just take you out behind the barn and knock you in the head with a damn hammer. I said, now don't stop me till that line. I'll take you out the thing and knock you in the head with a hammer. I had a few more things I was going to say then, but that was the closing line.
Right.
And Brian's like this. I'm looking at his face, it's real. It's real. To him, it's real. I'm belittling him so bad. And I say, you're just a dadgum jackass running around the thing. I said, jackass steps in a hole. Don't waste a bullet. Knock him in the head with a damn hammer. Oh, and brother, bam! Oh my gosh. My head's off my shoulders, brother. I'm on the floor and I'm going. And then Steve, with the same zest that he hit me, tears into him. And I'm laying there on that floor, man, and I watch Brian take a hell of a beating. And I go, man, this is a winner.
Money.
This is fabulous, man. Like nothing I ever saw. That's the way Brian was. Brian said, listen, chicken match, I'm going to beat the hell out of you, Colonel. I said, I'm a manager. You're flying Brian Pillman. I expect nothing less. And that's what I got. Brian was a serious young man. Great guy. But doggone it, man, he would kick your butt. He felt like, I think Brian felt like he was a little smaller and he needed to make up for it. And boy, when he messed with me, he made up for it. And, I took my lickings, man. Kept on ticking.
We got about 5 minutes left. I want to talk about how you wound up working for Vince and being with Jeff in WWE.
All Jeff Jarrett. You know how you go in with that young boy and you give him everything you can give him. You let him win. You better yourself and him too by doing it. You become great friends. You forge a relationship that'll last for a lifetime and more. And then I'm same thing. I finish up WCW. I moved from Atlanta because I have a job there no longer, and I head down to Florida. And same thing. I'm talking to my good Lord, and I'm saying, you know what, Lord? What am I going to do now? My hockey game's gone. My Colonel Parker's gone. Where am I going to go now? And I'll be doggone. Jim Ross calls me. I'm at the gym, and I come home in the afternoon. I got a message from Jim Ross. Said, Rob, we'd like you to come up here and do a little deal with Jeff Jarrett and the little thing, and this is the thing, and all. They said, give me a call. And man, I called them up, and son of a gun, they say, we said, Rob, it's an easy little job. You take a few bumps. We're not going to be wrestling. You're not going to do too much. We're going to pay you an enormous amount of money. I just go, wow. I said, because the money for WWF, top notch, the best. I didn't know folks made money in this business like that. I said, man, that's heavy duty, brother. I'm going to buy a new house. Oh, anyway, I find out that the reason that I'm there, the way I find out, I'm at a meeting with Jeff one day, and Jim Ross gets up there, and he's got all the boys around, and he says, I want all you guys to take your computer and email me in storylines that you think we're missing, something we're missing. So when we walk out of there, I get Jeff, and I say, you ain't going to mail in no storyline, are you? And he said, that's the way you got here. I say, I ain't mailing in no storyline. I ain't writing no dadgum letters to nobody, one of them deals. Right. And Jeff says, well, Rob, he says, that's the way you got here. He said, I wrote a story in about how Double J could have the old Colonel Parker come in and take over the thing and all. And I just said, my heart just fell to my feet. I just had to look at him and go, is that why I'm here? And he's like, yeah, I mentioned your name, and he jumped all over it. Wow. And I just said, you know what? It pays in this world. It pays to love people, to give to things, to go all out to help folks. And I guarantee the goodness comes right back to you. And there's old Jeff Jarrett that just said, hey, you're like a brother to me. You're You're like a second father to me and like a brother to me, and you're the first one I thought of. And I just said, you know what? I said, you know, it pays to pray, buddy, because it pays off. And be good in life. Do things right. Don't cheat your fellow workers, and it's important not to grasp all the money that you can get in your hands and stomp on everybody getting there and worry all about yourself and all that stuff. Give it up a little bit. Be the right kind of person. Make friends, and goodness comes back to you from it. And it's happened to me in my life, my entire life. It's, you know, bled over from family to working to friendships, and it's what I am. It's all my wrestling. It's everything that I am. It's guys that made me the best booker I could possibly be by working so hard, and it's me giving to folks and them giving back to me, and it's a God-given thing when you're able to see that and make it happen. Nothing better in this world.
Thanks for being here today. We probably could have went on with another hour. We had so many more names, but
Sure could have. We'd be here tomorrow night.
exactly. Thanks again.
Watch thousands of exclusive shoot interviews right now on TitleMatchNetwork.com.